I had to reset. I hate going off. We got to freaking upgrade and update because I hate when I have to reset because I just went off on a rant. But chapter 12 live read, bro. And I hope I'm going through this time because shoot. Let me make sure I'm freaking recording everything for on here. So, is it coming through this time? Because I know it died out last. Damn, I hate when that happens. All right. Let me know it's come through. We're going to get right into it. And I hate when I go into it and then all of a sudden it says something's fallen out or dropped out. All right, cool. Working cool. God, I wanted a freaking rant about the Paul Malohi. I hope everybody got that. Did the Paul Malohi thing come through? Because I went on a rant on Tupo Malohi, and then I realized that damn, that sucks. Anyways, yeah, I went on a rant on Tupo Malohi because I thought Tupo Malohi was a coward. He was a hoe. And only because that's what I was thinking about these past couple weeks since I've been gone, because I was talking about the relationship of Tupo Malohi to the entire, gangsta family. Tuku Aaho had 9 cooks. He cut off arms just to mark them as his. That was it. Mariner talked to one of the cooks, saw the stub, looked at it, and said it was cut off around right here, pretty much where the easy part to cut if you were to cut the joint of something and cut this part off. Cut this part off of 9 freaking guys. Tuku Aaho did. This is a king. So we're talking about mid to late 1700s this happened, right? Mariner shows up in 1805, and he eventually runs into one of these cooks and told him, yeah, Tuku Aaho chopped off our arms. There's 9 of us just to mark them as his. And Tuku Aaho was the king. Tupo Niwa was in Vava'u, high chief. Finau Ulukalala was in Ha'apai, high chief. Tupo Niwa said, Tuku Aaho is putting down overbearing tributes to him. We have to pay extra tribute and extra taxes to him and his family. Tupo Niwa didn't like that. Tupo Niwa goes to Hapai, tells his brother, Finau Ulukalala, I'm going to whack this guy with or without you. Now, we all know that they're all related somehow, some way. I mean, and we also know that in the chiefdom, how they call the chiefs, they're going to call them by the surname first. That's why Finau Ulukalala is the high chief of Hapai. His dad was Finau Maufanga, and Finau Maufanga's brother was Finau Fisi, who was a tributary chief in Fiji, right? Finau was the name they called the chiefs, the first name. Just like the Tupos. Tupo Niwa, high chief in Vava'u. Tupo Malohi, high chief in Nuku'alofa. The time Mariner got there, went with Finau Ulukalala, and they went to war, and Finau Malohi ended up running away, right? And then Tupo To'a was in Tonga somewhere. So you have Tuku Aaho, the king, in the mid to late 1700s, where Tupo Niwa went and killed him with Finau Ulukalala, took an axe to his head, right? Chopped him up. And you have Tuku Aaho's son, Tupo Niwa, who was the high chief of Nuku'alofa, and Tupo To'a was somewhere in Tongatapu before he went to Ha'apai. Tupo To'a ends up going after Tupo Niwa with the help of his brother, Finau Ulukalala, and ends up killing Tupo Niwa, the chief. We talked about how peaceful a man Tupo Niwa was, how nice he was, how Mariner himself liked Tupo Niwa because he was of a peaceful, mindset and, right? He loved the way that Tupo Niwa. Mariner seemed like he liked all the nice guys. He liked Pupunu. He liked the other guys, Naufahu and Kakaho, even though Kakaho was an ugly freaking warrior. He was, he liked Hala Api Api. He liked Talo, the peaceful guys. Vava'u guys were mostly peaceful for the most part. But he was the son and had allegiance to Finau Ulukalala. That's his dad. That's his adopted father, right? Now we have Tupo Malohi, ran from Nuwalofa into Bea or somewhere, was treated badly because, you ran over here and your people are being shot up by the hot buy guys. Dang, what kind of in a warrior mentality you're like, you left war to run away? This is Tupo Malohi I'm talking about. Tupo To'a's older brother, Fredo. You left your city to be, destroyed by cannons and guns, and you came here while they're getting blown to pieces, right? That's what these villages are thinking. He gets treated bad in one, he goes to the next village, he gets treated bad there, right? Because to them, they're like, just like I talked about last time, how could this captain abandon his ship and his people are still over there getting blown to pieces by Finau Ulukalala and his, the Palangi guys with the guns and the cannons? And then Tupo Malohi ends up in Hihifo with Teukawa, and Teukawa looks at it as a military, strategy. Oh, Tupo Malohi trained in Fiji with his men. Bring him, we'll take him, and then they did the whole battle in the last chapter, and then Tupo Malohi ends up leaving or running away from Hihifo just to go to Hawaii and asked Tupo To'a, hey, can you go talk to Finau? Let him know that, I'm humble. I don't want nothing to do with war. I just want to live in peace and whatever, right? And the reason why he told his little brother, Tupo To'a, to go talk to Finau is because he knew that if I was Tupo Malohi, he was a chief of Nualofa when he showed up and took Nualofa. I know he wanted to, let him know that I'm cool. He destroyed it by people and everybody and Nualofa, but I'm cool. Like, I'm not gonna retaliate. I just want to live in peace. This is what what I'm thinking about. And then he ends up going over to Finau Ulukalala. From the last chapter we talked about, he sat there and he was humble and, Finau Ulukalala's Matapule said, all right, we're done. We're cool. You guys are good. Take off the ifi leaves. Come sit in your spots. And Tupo Malohi just sat there like, no, man, I'm cool, man. They gave him kava and he was like, man, let's give it to this guy. Let him hold it. But, bro, no dignity, no pride, nothing. Like, at least be like, all right, yeah, all right, cool, yeah, all right, yeah. Just let y'all know, Yeah, he showed humility and all that, but to me, it seems like you showed so much cowardice to Tupo Malohi. You're a bitch. Sorry to say. Tupo Malohi, you're a hoe. I can't believe you would do that, right? Anyways, that's what I've been thinking. That's the only thing I've been wanting to talk about since I left. But because Tupo Malohi is Tupo To'a's older brother. These are the sons of Tuku Aaho, the guy who chopped off the arms just so that he could mark his cooks, right? Tupo Malohi is the older brother. Tupo To'a was a younger brother. He was the brave one that went and killed Tupo Niwa, with the assistance or, side help of Finau Ulukalala. And that's Finau Ulukalala's brother, Tupo Niwa is. Tupo To'a ends up being the father of King Taufa'ahau George Tupo I. Otua Motonga Gohoku Tofia. Tupo To'a's his dad, our first king. The Tupos end up in the palace and the family is still in the palace. The Ulukalala name is still in the palace. Hala'api Api, that name's in the palace somewhere. I've read some of the names of the people in the palace, in the government, and it's like, oh, are these guys related to the guys? Because all these names are from Vava'u or from Hapai, and they all share the names of these brave warriors, right? That I read in Mariner's book. The names are still in there. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, let's get right into it. All right. Shortly after Tupo Malohi and his followers, Tupo Malohi, there you go. There's the guy, had departed from the Hapai Islands, Finau's younger daughter, named Sawau Mailalangi, which in the Ha'amoa language means descended from the sky, about 6 or 7 years of age, fell sick. So last chapter we talked about how Tupo Malohi and his guys went over there. It seems like they're in Hapai, and they were begging Finau, forgive Tupo Malohi or whatever. After they left, it seems like Finau's daughter, Sawau Mailalangi, which in Ha'amoa language means descendant. See, and also the whole Ha'amoa thing. we talked about earlier in the book as far as how the evidence leads back to the Tongan Empire because we got Ha'apai, and a little further away we got Ha'amoa with the Ha'amoa people, and he only spells it with Ha'amoa in the book. And then farther away, very way farther away is Hawaii, right? So the entire world doesn't know that they're saying a Tongan word wrong. They're saying Hawaii, right? But the word that we know what it is Ha'avaihi. So you got the Ha'as, which means tribe of this, tribe. Vaihi means, many waters or a lot of water. So a far distance is what Ha'avaihi would mean, then Ha'amoa. So I'm thinking Finau's daughter has a Ha'amoa name. Is it because Finau had a Ha'amoa wife? Because we talked about how Moengangongo, Finau's son, came from Ha'amoa with two women to have a wedding ceremony, and he already had two Ha'apai wives, and he got two Ha'amoa wives, right? So it doesn't specify as far as if this little girl, Finau's daughter, young daughter, had a Ha'amoa wife, or if he just named her a Ha'amoa name based on the relationship of Tonga and Ha'amoa back then anyway, with relationships. Right? She fell sick, on which occasion she was removed from her father's house to another inside a fencing created to Tariai Tupo, the patron god of the house. We talked about how Tariai Tupo is a god. They built different houses for different gods for different purposes. It says right here is the patron god of the house. So this guy is the main guy of the champions. How means champion. Tariai Tupo is the patron god of the champions. And laid her down in front of it. Almost every morning, a hog was killed, dressed, and presented before the house as an offering to the god, that he might spare her life for the sake of Finau. Do we even believe that Finau deserves this? Right? We've gone through this entire thing, the entire book, and at this point right now, it's like, man, Finau was a how. He was a champion. You can't deny him that, right? Mariner even said, if Finau listened to me and kept on carrying on the conquest even further, he would have ruled all of Tonga, and the Finau name would be in the palace and not the Tupo name. If he kept on going, right? That's the theory Mariner had, if he kept on going, right? Instead, Tupo To'a, he's coming up behind Finau and ends up Tupo To'a's son, Taufahau Tupo King George I, ends up being the main king of Tonga, Otua mo Tonga Koku Tofia, throughout all the world, right? It's King George who we recognize. Anyway, so this Matapule is speaking. On these occasions, one or other of the Matapules, and sometimes two or three in succession, made an address to the invoking divinity, for he had no priest, to the following purpose. So the purpose is to speak for this sick child, and I guess they had no priest for that. I don't know if at this time or at all. Here thou seest assembled, so this is a Matapule speaking. Here thou seest assembled Finau and his chiefs and principal Matapules of thy favored land, the Tonga Islands, taken collectively. So he said Tonga. Thou seest them humbled before thee. We pray thee not to be merciless, but spare the life of the woman or the little girl, right? Footnote says, on such occasion, they call the person from whom they interceded, however young, either a man, a woman, according to the sex, although they have appropriate words to express boy, girl, or child. So I think he said fefine or fine matua, because that would mean woman. Anyways, he said woman, but there are words for child, with kitahine and tahine or whatever. For the sake of her father, who has always been attentive to every religious ceremony. Talking about Finau. All right, buddy. Footnote here says, Finau was noted for his want of religion. The above words, therefore, were used as mere form, and because no one dared to say otherwise. So they're saying Finau was known for want of religion. He wasn't really a religious guy. He was a political guy, right? We know that he was a brilliant guy in war, and he studied Mariner and all of the stories Mariner brought back from England, because Mariner's father was in the Revolutionary War in America, the whole 1776 a war in America. Mariner's dad was in that war. He ran a little cutter ship in that war under Cornwallis, Lord Cornwallis. He said, my dad ran under Cornwallis, and anybody who watched the movie Patriot knows who Cornwallis is and what a badass he was, and how the guy in Patriot, when he stole some of his things, read a book about Cornwallis and how Cornwallis was a brilliant war strategist, right? Mariner taught Finau a lot about war and war strategy, because that's all we know about Finau, is that he was good at war, he was good at strategizing, he was good at keeping his head on a swivel and never falling to the religious or to the emotional or to the family or to the customs and cultures. He never brought himself below being a strategist, a war genius, right? Because it says right here, he was want of religion. Mariner described him as a person who's want of religion, who's not really a religious guy, but used religious guys as pawns inside of this culture, this Tonga culture, knowing that the people are going to adhere to these priests and to these matapures. That's who this guy Finau Ulukalala is. All right, but if thy anger is justly excited by some crime or misdemeanor committed by any other of us who are here assembled, we entreat thee to inflict on the guilty one the punishment which he merits, and not to let go thy vengeance on one who was born but as yesterday. So this matapul is anybody who knows what how matapules speak in Tonga, or the people who produce music or poems. I mean, the eloquent articulations of these type of guys are brilliant. They you can feel it when you hear it. You're like, oh my gosh, bar after bar after bar. These type of guys. And so Finau Ulukalala he knew which ones threw bars out. Got the ones that threw bars out, the matapules, to come and speak to the people, to come and describe what he needs, what he wants. And it seems like he was the perfect king as far as he wanted to conquer, right? He told Mariner before, he's like, all these stories that you're telling me, if I had the weapons and the military that your country had, I would rule the world. That was the first thing that came to mind after Mariner told him all these stories about war and expeditions of war or conquest. He told Mariner, if I had the same militaries that your country had and the same weapons and everything like that, I'd rule the world. In which Mariner said, or in his mind, he said, well, I'm glad you don't, because that's all you would want, is to rule. So we know that Finau is a warmonger, right? Okay. Let's see. Interesting. Okay. For our own parts, so he's talking about take this curse away from this girl, let her live. If it was something somebody else did, and this is a superstition of Tonga, of Tongans, like they believe this so much, they have faith in this so much, and I believe in my own theory growing up in Tonga and how many people believe in ghosts. Like ghost stories are all over Tonga. Ghost stories, like people who see spirits, right? All the time. And it's not uncommon. Anywhere, any of the villages that I go to in Tonga, they have ghost stories. Everybody has ghost stories. I don't believe that it's because of the ghosts that they have these stories. I believe it's because of their faith that these have these stories. Just because of how a lot of times in scripture, people have faith in things happen, right? Jesus has always gone, oh, that happened because of your faith. You saw me, like to the brother of Jared, you saw me because of your faith. That's how you were able to see me, because of your faith. I think the freaking Tongans have, whether it's a superstition, but it's it's embedded inside of their souls, where they believe if they see something, a ghost or a spirit or something, they see it because of their strong faith, their strong belief that it's happening, right? Simply because of that. Because of that, I don't doubt it, and they're not even scared if they do. At this point, they just know, oh yeah, there's a spirit there. I don't know who that is, whatever. I saw a live like last week or a couple weeks ago of a guy who's protecting his plantation in Tonga, and he's like, hey, there's ghosts here, and I can hear them speaking, having a conversation. Like it's that common, almost as if the spirit world is, which it is a veil, like it's very thin to the Tongans in Tonga because they believe it so much and they have faith so much in it that it's so thin they can probably hear the spirits having conversations in the next life. You know what I'm saying? It's a trippy thing. Anyway, this is the superstition or the faith that they have as far as them speaking to the gods. If any of us, aside from this girl, because this is Finau Ulukalala's daughter, because Finau Ulukalala doesn't deserve this. He's a high chief. He's a king of Tonga, right? He's praising him. Like, she doesn't deserve this, and especially the king doesn't deserve this because the king is a servant of Tonga, and Tonga is a servant of God. If any of us did something, let this curse fall upon us. This is what this Matapule was saying. For our own parts, why do we wish to live but for the sake of Finau? See that kind of language right there? Now this priest of this Matapule obviously is kissing Finau's ass. There's no purpose for us to live but for Finau. Shana. I bet one of the warriors was like, oh, I mean, right? Of course, most of the people are probably like, yeah, we live for Finau. That's crazy. Crazy to me. Some of the allegiances to Finau, right? And even till to this day, you talk to anybody, you ask anybody, or in conversation, in jest, people say, hey, Fefeake, how are you doing? What's going on? How are you? They'll always say, this is the type of language they're using here. As long as Ulukalala's okay, we're all okay, right? This is the type of language Matapule is using. And in 2025, because we're talking about 1806, 1807, 2025, we're using the same language. As long as Ulukalala's okay, we're all okay. Bro, the friggin' ancestors, obviously, or, at least my ancestors didn't read this book. They didn't have this to basically say, nah, Ulukalala, no, we don't do that. Anyways, but if his family is afflicted, we are all afflicted, innocent as well as guilty. He's talking like a preacher now. He's preaching. How canst thou be merciless? Dost thou not see here Finau? And is not Afu here, who descended from ancient Tonga chiefs now in Pulotu? Pulotu is the spirit world. He's talking about Afu. Afu's family, whoever this Afu. Did we talk about Afu in the last chapter? I think we talked about Afu in the last chapter. Afu was in the last, in the ancestors from the old chiefs of Tonga, kings of Tonga. So he's saying, God, look at us. We got Afu's here, and his ancestors are from the old chiefs. And we got, to show you that Finau doesn't deserve this. And it's not Fotu here. And did he not descend from Mumue for merely how of Tonga? Fotu, bruh. Who knows a Fotu? Who's related to the Fotus? I know Fotus. Your name is in here. You descend from Mumue for merely how of Tonga. One of the hows. Interestingly enough, I got a daughter that married a Fotu. His name is Malakai Fotu. Those guys grew up in Hawaii, in Kalihi. I grew up with Shone Fotu's kids. Those guys are from Fontana here in America, ended up in Utah, and now they're here in Missouri. Fotus. Interesting. Also worked with those other Fotus in Salt Lake. Your name is here, guys. Descended from the Hows. Remember, Hows are champions that took over property, that took over land. Those are Hows. And is not Alo here. And New Kapu. And Tupo. New Kapu. Who's a New Kapu or knows where that name comes from? Your name is being used here as one of the high chiefs of this Matapule telling the gods, look, New Kapu's here, Tupo is here, Alo's here, Fotu's here, Afu's here, to show you how, how these must be great chiefs for us to be like, we're here to show you Tariai Tupo, the god of the house. These are all house. We're all here to ask for your mercy to heal this girl, this little girl, Finau's daughter. My langi. Hamon name. Maybe a Hamon girl from a Hamon mom. But that's just theory. Then what art thou merciless? Spoken in rather an impatient and premonitory tone. If you hear the Matapole speak, they all sound impatient. Ko aloeni, ko fotueni, ogmauheni. Like they talk like that when they're talking to each other, or when they're addressing from the position of a high chief towards a god or a higher being or whatever. This is how they speak. They sound like that, right? That's how Matapule sound. And the tone and the volume, everything brings a sense of something out of everybody. Like, yeah, we're convinced that this is how it should be done. This is what we're asking. We're all asking together at the same tone, at the same volume. All right? Have regard for Finau and save the life of his daughter. This is the Matapule talking to the god. Every morning, as before stated, for about a fortnight, a hog was killed and offered to the god, and addresses were made similar to the above, and repeated 5 or 6 times or 7 times a day, but the gods seemed not to hearken to their petition, and the child daily became worse. In about 14 or 16 days, finding their prayers unavailing, they took her to another fencing in the neighborhood, consecrated to Tu'i Fua Pulotu. Tu'i Fua Pulotu means the king of all of the Pulotu, the king of all of the spirit world. So they first went to Tariai Tupo, put him in the fencing of Tariai Tupo, the house of Tariai Tupo, and after 17 days, they took her and put her in the fencing house of Tuifua Pulotu, king of all of Pulotu. Here the same ceremonies were practiced for about a week, with as little good result. Finau, finding his daughter getting worse instead of better, ordered his large canoes to be launched and his wives, chiefs, matapules, in short, his whole household, to go on board. His sick daughter was conveyed into the canoe which he and his wives accompanied, Mr. Mariner also being on board. They set sail for the island of Hunga, which belonged to a priest called Tupotea. Finau Ulukalala has a soft spot for his family. No doubt about that. As far as his mentality, his intentions of war and conquer and conquest, we know that he's a politician, right? For him to kill his brother, help out we trick the Vava'u people to let him come stay there, eventually taking out all the Vava'u high chiefs, right? In war, he was a brilliant man. He was a great warrior in war. He was a great military strategist. Seems like he has a very soft heart for him to say, all right, everybody jump on board. We're going to go down and to Hunga, to a priest called Tupotea. I think Tupotea can save her. After, how long have we been here? 14 days at the fencing house of the god Tariai Tupo, 7 days over here at the fencing house of Tuifua Pulotu, and now it's not working. All right, load up, let's go. We're gonna go over to Tupotea. Mariner was there in Hunga. who's accustomed to be inspired by Finau's tutelar god, Tupototai. So Tupotea is this priest who speaks for Tupototai. Totai is fisherman, right? There's the god of the fishermen, or Tupo is the god of fish. Tupototai is the god of the fish, or fish people. On this island, several enclosures or fencings are consecrated to this god, to one of which his daughter was carried, and the same offering and same kind of address was frequently made. But in this case, not before the consecrated house where the sick child may lay, but wherever the priest happened to be, which was generally at his own house or at Finau's. So instead of taking him to the house of the Pototai, they took him to the priest's house later down. It must here be remarked that those gods who have priests are invoked in the person of the inspired priest, wherever he may happen to be. Those who have no priest are invoked at the consecrated house by the Mataapure, as was the case in the late instance with Tariai Tupo, who has no priest. Oh, interesting. So each god has a priest assigned to him for certain purposes. It's that priest that should be speaking. What he's saying is this Tupotea is a priest of Tupo Totai. But when we were back in where he was, there was no priest for Tariai Tupo. So if there's no priest for a god, they just use Matapure instead. Tupo Totai was thus invoked every day in the person of his priest during a fortnight or 3 weeks, seated at the head of the kava ring. They're fight kavang again, guys. How many times have I told you guys about the kava and how these guys fight kava all the time, right? Seated at the head of the kava ring and used for every single purpose, under the sun, whatever it was, kava was there. He seemed much affected and generally shed a profusion of tears. To their earnest entreaties, he scarcely ever made any answer, and when he did, he was, for the most part, to the following effect: "Why do you weary yourselves with entreating me?" Speaking as if he were the god. If the power to restore the woman rested solely with me, I would do it. Be assured, it is all done by the will of the gods of Pulotu. This is the priest or the Matapuna speaking, but at this point, there's a priest saying, in Tongan too, how I trouble me? Why do you guys trouble me? Kapag na iyaw ay mafai me go iyaw pe, toda pe. Now it's iyaw. I would have healed her already. But that power isn't just in me. This is the priest talking to Finawa and the company. But if the power is not okay, I'm a fight going to heal your daughter. Okay, but if it was in the main king or priest or the god of Pulotu, the spirit world, then he would have done it already. I'm not the guy. Basically, the priest is saying, all right, if this girl don't heal, then it's my ass. So I can't tell Finau anything less. You gotta, nut up and freaking tell him straight up. Why are you troubling me? If the power to restore the woman rested solely with me, I would do it. Be assured, it is all done by the will of the gods of Pulotu. All of them. This is the will of all of the gods of Pulotu. This is all of them. All of them are meeting up together and having a council meeting of some sort to decide whether or not she deserves to live. This is how they believe. Every day he visited the sick girl, occasionally sat down by her, took her hand, and shed tears. During this time, the Matapules frequently repaired to the house of the priest, and laying kava before him, consulted him privately. On one of these occasions, Finau, not being present, he told them that if they knew why the child was sick, they would not come, thus to invoke him. So the Matapul is saying, Shana, We probably just give her the medicine because they use medicine in Tonga all the time, right? But this is Matapu telling the priest to calm the priest down or whatever, have a start conversation. He then declared, in general terms, that it was for the common good. Finau, being informed of this, addressed the priest at the consultation on the following morning, asking him, or rather the God within him, what he meant by the general good. If my spirits are oppressed, are not those of all my subjects so likewise? But if the gods have any resentment against me, let the whole weight of vengeance fall on my head. I fear not their vengeance, but spare my child. Finau Ulukalala, you just became a hero today. You son of a gun, you just became a hero today. Because never in any of the conquests that he went through did he ever say, I will lay down my own life for this. Like, he put everybody up front, weapons, Balangis, Hamoas, the Fijians, the other warriors, the bravest warriors, right? Going head up. Trading his brother for a political friend in Tupo Doa. Trading Tupo Nio for Tupo Doa, right? This is the first time we ever see him say something like this. Affectionate. Who is this girl to him? Of course, it's his daughter. Yeah, of course. But why is he so concerned and want to trade his life for his daughter? Is it because of the mom? Is it because of her herself? Is it because of a promise he made to somebody? So a bargaining chip, right? Did he promise this girl to one of the high chiefs or the kings or whatever? What's going on? Why would he risk his life, which we've seen he's never done in the entire book that we've been reading? Why would he risk for his life for this girl now, right? Spare my child, and I earnestly entreat you to exert all your influence with the other gods, that I alone may suffer all the punishment they desire to inflict. He knows that all the gods have to meet in the spirit world. He's speaking to this priest as he's speaking into the spirit world, to the meeting of the gods and the council thereof. Let them know. Go out, they'll mate, like, whatever this illness is, give it to me. Spare my child. This is the first time we see him fearlessly wanting to die for somebody, right? This Sawa Mailangi girl. To this the god returned no answer, and the priest, retiring among the people, the company separated. Remember when they're in the circle of Kava, Finau's on one side, the priest on the other side, and Finau's pleading to him. Tell the other gods in Pulotu, in the spirit world over there where you are, in that council, spare her. Take me, I'll trade my soul for hers. Just spare her. And the priest himself got up and went, because when the spirit of the god leaves the priest, then to let everybody know that the spirit's gone, the priest gets up and he goes and sits among the people on the outside of the circle. Once he did that, Finau basically, after his little rant or preaching, pretty much, which goes to show that he actually does believe in God. Finau did believe, or why would he be pleading with the priest so earnestly if he didn't believe? He actually does believe. He may have used it throughout the book that we've been reading as parts of ways and reasons for him to win in war. He probably used it against the people in many places, other places. But here and now, no, he's pleading for himself. No, I know that I believe this to be true. For other purpose, for other times, I use this against the people to win in war. But right now, he's saying, no, I believe this to be true. Tell the other priests, tell the other gods, this is what I'm telling you. Trade my soul. Tell them to come and get me and leave her. Right? All right, Finau. I'm going to have to give you some, right? I mean, some credit. I should have finished that sentence. Let me give you some, As soon as Finau arrived at his house, His spirits much agitated, and his pride, in all probability, much hurt, he laid down on his mat and felt himself indisposed. I never thought I would, come to a point in time where Finau walked into his house. Scene. Finau walks in his tapa. Walks in, defeated face. Sun outside of the hut. Mat. He lays down on his mat. Defeated. What to do? Laying on a kari. What did I do? Which god should I have pled to? How can I save this girl? I wonder what the gods are thinking. What did I do throughout this time that makes me not deserve this blessing? End scene. Boom. There's your scene. You know what I'm saying? His illness hourly increased, and feeling, as he said, a secret presentiment of approaching death, his female attendants ran out and informed his chiefs and matapules, who in consequence immediately repaired to his house and found him unable to speak. Bro, what just happened? Finau is now laying there unable to speak. Did he actually trade his soul with the gods for this girl? Because now whoever his attendants were, right? And I've described attendants as other wives in some parts of the book, along with children, saw that he was laying there and he couldn't speak. For as soon as he saw them, he endeavored in vain to give utterance to his ideas and seemed choked by the vehemence of his inward emotions. At length, a flood of tears coming to his relief, he acknowledged the justice of the gods, but lamented greatly that he was about to meet his death on a bed of sickness instead of going to brave it in the field of battle. What can I say, bruh? What can I say? I think this is an honorable death. If he now dies right now, this is an honorable death. Yes. It would have been honorable regardless. It would have been honorable, right? Because we got to give him credit for all the wars and all that. But it's crazy that through all the conquest, this is how he's going to freaking die. By taking his daughter to wherever he was, and going throughout to all these god houses and priests and matapoles speaking to the gods to save this girl, this daughter of his. So it's just crazy interesting. But it's the correct sentiment, because he's saying it's too bad that I have to die this way. It's probably worth it, not probably, but I traded my life for my daughter's life. Although I would have rather died in war. Finau, you could have died in war many times. But, of course, you're the king. You shouldn't. You're a good military mind. After a little pause, he said in a calm but firm tone of voice, I tremble at the approaching fate of my country. For I perceive plainly that after my death, the state of affairs will be much altered for the worse. I have had daily proofs that the obedience of my subjects is not excited by their love, but by their fears. Yes, you're right. Anybody who follow you because of fear, not because of love. For Finau's name to have lasted all these decades, these centuries, it's 2 centuries, it's 200 years ago, is an honor to you, Finau. That's an honor to you. For your conquest, for your love and loyalty to Tonga even though a lot of people didn't see it that way. And that was the case for a lot of kings. You know, the ambition of a king, the ambition of a how, of a champion to conquer, right? He's not alone on this. He's not alone in trying to win in conquest. Why do you think all the freaking villages in Tonga were forts? There were fortresses because everybody had ambitions of conquest. From Hihifo, Nukunuku, Nuku'alofa, Pea, Mariner said that there were forts and fortresses everywhere, all over Tonga. Everybody had a conquest. There were houses everywhere, right? There were to'as everywhere, right? Hapai didn't have a fortress. So they were the only one that could have been living freely because of Finau. Vava'u had a fortress, but that was in Feritoa, but that was to protect themselves from Finau. Nuku'alofa had a fortress, right? Walls and everything. Nukunuku, we read, had a fortress. Hihifo guys burnt it down. But Mariner said when he went to Tonga, there were fortresses everywhere. Every single village was a fortress. So Finau isn't alone on the mentality of conquest and how. How could they have a king, Tuku Aaho, and have high chiefs and everything, and everybody's still, we're still building a fence. You know what I mean? We don't trust y'all. We do not trust anybody out here. So everybody had a fortress. So Finau, you know what? You're lying on your deathbed, but yeah, we gotta admit, you gotta give you the credit. You was a motherfucking gangster. You was a motherfucking, you was a king of kings, right? And if you did follow Mariner's advice to keep going on conquest, the Finau's name would be in the palace. I believe that. But now you're about to die. We didn't like you throughout the movie, but throughout the movie, seeing Finau laying there, saying these things, you know, I've seen. It sucks that I have to die this way, illness and sickness. I wish I did go out and die in war. All the battles, images of Nuku'alofa, cannons, body parts all over Nuku'alofa, looking around, right? Images of Vava'u, Feritoa Fortress, built of clay, cannonballs not getting in, right? Images of Tupouniua, Tupotoa killing him, images of people dying, me having so much say in a lot of the spiritual things, in a lot of the cultural things, in a lot of the religious things, a lot of things of the peoples and families, my wives and children. For me to have traded my soul for my daughter, it is a death worth having, but the warrior in me wishes that I did die in battle. Yes. Great life, great warrior. Good job, buddy. Good job. But now he realizes that his subjects, you know, their obedience wasn't out of love, it was out of fear. Yeah, that's the give and take, right? If you want it that bad, there's sacrifices to be made. And in this case, the sacrifice was love. But you sacrifice the love of the people for power, and now they're loyal to you because of fear. But that's what it is. That's what you wanted. Several chiefs and matapones who, owing to the crowd, were not able to get into the house, but overheard that what passed, went immediately to the priest of Tupototai and presenting him kavarut and sat down before him. An old matapone then addressed him, stating that they had firm belief in the power which the gods possessed of afflicting what punishment they chose upon mortals. But he entreated the god to use his influence with the other powers of Pulotu, that they might not take offense at what Finau had said in the morning, which was merely spoken on the impulse of the moment. When warmly agitated, when sentiments of affection for his daughter, and not from any real disrespect to the gods. He supplicated him also to have regard to the general good of the islands, and not, by depriving them of Finau, involve the whole nation in anarchy and confusion. Finau's wrong about that, first of all, as far as anarchy and confusion. Anarchy is going to exist no matter what. Finau Ulukalala is the king of anarchy. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? He's talking about, I fear that it's going to be unorganized. Well, it was only organized because you feared them into it, Finau. You feared them into organizing or to making it look organized. You just said it yourself. I hate that people respect me out of fear and not out of love. Well, you could have ruled differently, right? We know that works, and we've seen it work before. So your fear of anarchy is a worthless, pointless fear, because Tonga was just going to be Tonga no matter what. Besides, ruling out of fear wasn't the way. Look at what happened to Tuku Aaho. You and Tupo went and killed him. That's what ruling out of fear looks like, and that's the end of ruling out of fear, which, in all accounts, every godfather, every mobster that lives to the end of his life and dies when he gets old or dies out of illness or whatever, those are the lucky ones, right? The unlucky ones are the ones that found themselves taken out. And a lot of the brave ones, a lot of the champions inside of the house, inside of, mobsters, they all get taken out at some point. So Finau's a lucky one. He was a lucky Don, a lucky How champion. And now you got Matapunas over here begging Tupoto Tai, hey, look, man, tell the gods, bringing Kava to him. Tell the gods Finau didn't mean what he said earlier. He didn't do it out of disrespect to the gods. Tell the gods we're sorry. This is how much they believe this stuff. This is how much they believe in God now. So anybody who doesn't believe in God now, like as far as, we see polys online, some of Tongas online that, they don't believe in God or whatever, stuff like that. Your ancestors would be disappointed in you. Your ancestors would be rolling in their grave if they found out that you left not believing in a God. Look these are people who are coming running as if they're going over to video chat with the gods. They're running over, putting kava down to the priest at the house of the Tupo, Pulotu or whatever, of the gods, telling them, hey, tell the gods he's sorry. He didn't mean that. As if they're trying to video time the gods to the other side, right? These faithful, faith-having people. Amazing. Where were we? He supplicated him also to have regard to the general good of the islands. Oh, telling the gods, hey, it's not bad if you guys take Tupao. It's not a good thing. Depriving Finau involved the whole nation in anarchy and confusion. It's not a good thing if you take Finau. The priest remained some time in silence and was much affected. At length, he announced that the gods of Pulotu had, for a long time past, debated among themselves with regard to the punishment they should inflict upon Finau. Nice. Good play, priest. Tupototai. For the many instances he had shown of disobedience to religious precepts and of exceeding disrespect for divine power, that they had at first resolved upon his death, but that he, Tupototai, having repeatedly interceded in his behalf, some of the other gods also took his part, in consequence of which there arose very, very violent dissensions in Pulotu. Not as he explained to them by actual fighting, for gods are immortal and can neither be killed, wounded, nor hurt, but by urgent and potent arguments which had occasioned, he said, the late high winds and tremendous thunder. You see that? We're here in Puloto, in the spirit world. We have been debating. People have been talking about, should we take Finau now? Should the gods take? Let's take him now. And some of the gods are like, nah. He's good for Tonga. Look, he's helping in the wars and the battles. This is the scene in the spirit world. Gods of the spirit world of Puloto arguing, and the priest tells them that's why the storms and the waves and everything have been happening, because we've been fighting over here in the spirit world. That's what the priest told them. There's a lot of argument, and we wanted to take him out last year. We want to take him out. There's a few reasons. He's been disrespecting. He's been using ordinances. He's been defiling or disgracing or blaspheming the gods for many times. And then you can tell by the weather that we've been wanting to take him for a while. But we've been debating and fighting because, we can't die. So it's not like we're going to be fighting war amongst ourselves. We're not physical. We're godly beings. And we just argue back and forth. And the result of the arguments is the fact that when we fight here on the spirit world, the physical world feels it through the storms, through the waves. That's what happens, right? That they had consequently come to a resolution of saving his life, seeing that his death would be a greater evil to his people than to himself, and of punishing him in another and perhaps more severe way, by the death of his most dear and beloved daughter, who must therefore be inevitably taken from him. This makes perfect sense to them now. You've come to me, seen, priest. We've decided that not only did he defile the ordinances of the gods by blaspheming the name of the gods, by how he's treated the people, or at least the different covenants and ordinances of the gods, we decided to do something worse than just taking his life. We're going to take his daughter's life first. That's what the priest is telling these guys. We're going to take his daughter first, so that to punish him, to make him grovel, which is what he's doing. He's groveling. He's taking her to different god houses, plead. Which priest? Which patapone? Plead. No, not here. Let's go to Hunga. Plead. Tupoto Dai, plead for me. And Tupoto Dai sits there as Finau is lying in his deathbed now. No. We've been fighting over this for a long time. And now, not only are we going to take him, we're going to take his daughter first, so that he is punished in his soul for what he's done while he's been here. For as it had been decreed beyond all revocation that either he or his daughter must die, her life could not be saved without taking away his. As a sort of proof of this decree, he bade them remark, what while Finau was at this time ill, his daughter was much better, and comparatively full of life and spirit, which was actually the case. Tomorrow, he said, her father would be tolerably well, for the gods had not decreed his immediate death, but only a temporary illness to impress on his mind a sense of their power, and then his daughter would relapse and become as bad or worse than ever. The priest is telling him, okay, the daughter's better. The daughter is well. She got sick for however long. Now she's better. And the priest is telling him, see, okay, we did that to the daughter to show Finau our power, and then we're going to make him better, and then we're going to make her sick even worse. That's what the priest is saying. The priest being now silent, the chiefs and matapules left him with a strong belief of the truths he had been telling them. When they arrived at Finau's house, they found him somewhat better, but did not communicate what they had heard from the priest. This, however, was soon rumored among the other chiefs and matapules in the king's cookhouse, where they generally resort for kava. Okay, so they're faikavaing. So the king's cookhouse, right? Here in, are they still in Hunga? those guys are talking while they're faikavaing. Of course, they're going to talk about it, right? They're in the cookhouse. They're faikavaing. Like, shit, kaltama. Finau Setwata, or the or the priest, what he said, right? They're talking about it. Great conversation for a freaking Kava Circle, by the way, right? These guys are lucky that they get to talk about Finau and his fate in a Kava Circle. Forget about it. Next to none. Where they generally resort for Kava, and which, from custom, has become a sort of rendezvous to pick up or to retail news. He's talking about this is where we get the tea, bruh. The Kava Circle is where you get the tea, cuz. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so that's what Mariner is saying. Mr. Mariner, who had been with Finau, his patron, father, and protector, during his illness, coming to the cookhouse and hearing what the priest had said, went out of curiosity to Finau's daughter and was surprised to find her sitting up, eating ripe bananas, and in very good spirits, talking at intervals to her female attendants. In the evening, Finau, so there's Mariner, after hearing the priest, right, in the circle with the Madaburas, then he goes over to get the tea from the Faikava guys over in the cookhouse, and then eventually walks over to look at the girl, and the girl is sitting up eating ripe bananas. Remember, Mariner has never believed in all this superstitious stuff, right? But now he's connecting the irony of, oh, this ironic, right? Biba time, yeah. In the evening, Finau, feeling himself for the most part recovered, visited his daughter and found her much worse then. Oh, snap. Bro, okay, now even I'm right now, like, what? That's exactly what the priest said. That when he gets better, she's gonna get worse. After she got better. She had been in the morning. He now expressed his intention of passing the night at her house, which he accordingly did. When he awoke in the morning, he felt himself perfectly recovered. So, wait, what? He thought he was going to die the night before. He wakes up and he's alive and well. And then he gets up and goes visits her. But going to his daughter's mat, he found to his utmost grief that she was worse than ever. In the course of the morning, he went down to the seashore to direct some alterations he had designed in the sail of his canoe, in which he also employed himself to distract his thoughts probably the greater part of the day. Okay. Y'all. This is all from the priest, which is trippy that the priest saw this or said this. Inside of the priest, it's almost like a gift. The priest said, while Finau is lying there dying, his daughter is going to get better. But from Pulatu, from the spirit world, as we've argued, and the reason why there's been storms and all that because of our arguings, when she gets better, he's going to get well. We're all going to see her get better. Then he gets better. Then she gets worse. And he's going to be okay. All happened in order as he said it. Which is a very interesting part. But if you have somebody with that gift, right? You go online and you find the gift of people with gift of seeing things, right? The people who see things, or I don't care, the mediums, right? There's a lot of people online who do that. Yeah, I'm seeing this person, I'm seeing that. Do you have a daughter, a grandmother, right? People who see things on the other side. Tonga had already had this back then. You know what I'm saying? They had always believed this. So when, like, my brother and his wife got a read. It's called reading. They got a read from one of these tells, and this person's I saw him on TikTok from who they got their read, and it was so close. It was so spiritual. It was so ironically, to the point, to the T of what they're talking about, right? And it's, you can believe it, you cannot believe it, it's whatever. They have shows from back in the days of them making fun of people like that. I see something in your future. Is there somebody with the right people speaking to hearing something from the spirit world? Yeah, the letter M. The letter M is coming, right? They've clowned on it before. My brother and his wife went through something like that, and it was so. They said it was so in depth in their soul truth actually happened. And now we're reading right now, Tonga had that. It could have been superstition because sometimes I was like, I don't know if these priests, but with examples like this, I absolutely am like, oh snap, that's crazy that he called it before. Mariner witnessed it himself. He called it. The priest called it, right? And so we talked about how faith, how people who they call it the Shiote Volo, right? So they can see spirits from the next life, from the spirit world. They can see into the spirit world of people walking around and having conversations, or at least spirits in the area of Tonga, anywhere in Tonga, spirits having conversations, and they call it Shiote Volo. Right? I told you guys about the live I saw a couple weeks ago of a guy parked outside of a farm protecting the crops, hearing conversation next to him, going and checking it out. Nobody's there. That's common because of faith, because this is my own belief as far as bringing up the brother of Jared and the brother of Jared seeing Christ's finger. And then next minute he saw his whole body and Christ was like, oh snap, how the heck? And then Christ realizing I covered myself, but your faith made me uncover your ability to see me. Your faith did that. So what I'm saying is, as far as the faith of the people in Tonga and the Siot Devolo stuff, connecting the dots, and then having this priest, knowing that there are some readers with my brother and his wife, like readers have always existed, right? Visionaries, revelation, something tapped into the next life, to the spirit world, to where the people, when they see it, there's no doubt. Of course, yeah, we know that Pulotu's real. Now we know Pulotu's real with more information of Pulotu, the spirit world, as far as conversation in the spirit world. But it's very interesting how a lot of that ties together. At night, he, Finau Ulukalala, again slept at the house of his daughter, and very early the following morning ordered all his chiefs, matapulas and attendants, to go on board his canoes and gave direction. So we talked about how he tried to distract himself, because when he got better, he went over to his daughter's house. She was worse, sat there for a few, and then remembered, or, they got to travel or whatever. So he went and spent the whole day fixing this sail, adjusting sail. I've never heard Finau do any kind of work at all, but he, as far as, we've never heard him do any kind of work like this, labor. And now here he is on his canoe or on his ship fixing the sails just for him to get his mind off it. And this mariner's interpretation of, it looks like he's trying to get his mind off it. It looks like that he's distracting himself. That's what Mariner's seeing, right? Seeing Mariner on the beach, closer to the line of trees, coconut trees in the shade, looking down into the ocean at all the vast ships and canoes. Finau Ulukalala fixing a sail. Mariner looking down, and all he's thinking is, he must be trying to kill time, distract himself. That's my interpretation of him working on a sail, knowing that there's people here who work on sails. There's people here who work on anything else. Mariner's saying he's distracting himself. So now they're going to go on board to go somewhere. Then following him himself, made sail for the island of Ofu, with intention of consulting Alaivalu, the tutelar god of his aunt, Toi Umu. This is so desperate. Anybody who's been keeping up with this. This is desperate. He went to Afu to consult Alai Valu, the tutelar god. I like saying tutelar because it sounds better, but it's tutelar. I've heard it pronounced tutelar god. Of his aunt Toi Umu. Toi Umu is the high chief of Vava'u after Tuponiwa died. He went to consult her god. So yeah, they're in Afu now. Yeah, this is desperate. This is crazy. I just want to know. Now I'm wondering, is that how he feels with all his kids? Of all his daughters? Or is there something about this daughter? Right? This daughter is Sao Mailangi, which is Hamoa sent from heaven, right? Because I've already theorized: is her mom Hamoa? Is she Hamoa? Where is this girl from that he's taking these drastic measures to save her life? Desperate. They arrived after 2 hours sail and immediately on landing went and presented kava root to the priest of that god. Look how freaking in depth or inside of the culture kava is. Every time they have went in to talk to a god or to a priest, they've taken kava there. What is it about this kava root that makes them think that this kava, right, from the ground of Tonga, from the dirt, and it's the root, right? And it's the thing that they partake every day, everywhere they go, all the time. We've talked about how Mariner said, when somebody starts speaking as if they're speaking from the gods, from the spirit, like they feel the spirit, and some influence from the spirit world or from the gods are coming to this person, they give them kava to release more of that energy. Kava actually has an energy. Anybody who goes around kava knows that kava has a vibe. It has an energy. Anybody who's around it, conversation, like offense doesn't exist inside the kava vibe. Offense doesn't. If you get offended, that's on you. Right? But as far as the vibe or the energy and feel of kava, the kava community, the kava world, they tell you kava 101 is leave your ego at the door, leave your pride out of it, don't get offended, don't take anything personal, like everything that has to do with disciplining your emotions. That's the kava vibe. Because you're going to hear things that aren't going to be, natural probably for you to hear. And next minute, it's going to offend you or it's going to offend somebody. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is. Kava is more a spiritual thing. No matter what we use it for today, it's always been tied to spiritual ordinances, to ask gods to feel good, to give us strength or give us forgiveness or whatever. They've always used kava to open that door. The key to the door to the spirit world seems to be kava. And then the priest accepts it, and then boom, he starts speaking for the gods. Interesting. They arrived after 2 hours sail and immediately on landing went and presented kava root to the priest of that god. So the priest is somebody there in Ofu. The name of that priest, Mr. Mariner, has forgotten. Mariner, you die. Mariner forgot the priest in Ofu. Sorry, guys. Anybody from Ofu? Mariner forgot his name. But the god is Alai Valu, who is the god, and it's Umu, high chief of Ava'u, Finau's aunt. It's her god. In the meantime, the sick child was taken to the god's consecrated house. The company being seated in the presence of the priest, a bowl of kava was presented to him, the priest. When the god said, "It is in vain that you come here to invoke me upon a subject on which you have obtained all the information that is necessary for you to know." The priest immediately Og mau tai mi homo hau ki heni. Na ki ton ke mo hau ki heni kona ko mea kona mo o si lo na mtatu he whahe kau whaiwhe kau koe na mo o ki ai. O tā anō mo whaka o tua na mo o tā anō ki ai. Osh! Whiunga ia. Kona mo ilo e mga mea mo ton ke mo ilo. Damn, you said that to Finau Ulukalala? Bro, this is the freaking priest. What is his name? Oh, that's right. Freaking Mariner's dumbass didn't remember. Tupoto Tai has already instructed you in the will of the gods, and I can communicate nothing farther. This is crazy because how would he have known what anybody in the other islands have said? Whether it's Vava'u or Hapai or where were they just at? Hunga. How are you an Ofu and you already know what these other gods have said? Right? These guys were closer to the spirit world or to the spirit, or at least communication. Either that or they had sailors or rowers, quick, fast rowers bring news everywhere, right? Spread the news. The priest, having said this, Finau and his attendants rose up and went their way. Scene. Finau hearing this. You've heard what you need to hear from all the other gods. There's nothing more to tell you. Finau. Malo, malo. Getting up. Everybody getting up. Circle. Leave the kava there. Let's get up. Let's go. Now that I think of it, kava, when you go into a funeral and you take kava bag and you present it to somebody, and then the dude walks away, and then the guy who's speaking for the family, they say, "Tafoki mai," and that guy who brought the kava will come and get the kava and take it. To'o atue, take the kava with you. Ke fai a ke fatongia. Take it with you to do your responsibilities, whatever you need to do with it. And the responsibility that kava has is to go drink it and have the spirit to be with you, to be able to communicate under that vibe of communication. Go use it for the purposes it's supposed to be used for whatever conversation that needs to be had. And may the gods be with you guys, because that kava is the key that opens the door to the spirit world. They've always believed this, right? For them to know that to get somebody's frequency in tune with the spirit world, they have to have kava. Give them kava. They'll give you a revelation, vision, everything if you give them kava. You know what I'm saying? So it's more than just, nah. To them, it's not. They're using this passionately inside of their daily life as a spiritual weapon, almost. In ordinance, in tune, in line with what they're doing. Why would they take kava unless kava was the main key to whatever they're trying to get to? Open the doors that they're trying to open. They have to have kava. They've taken it everywhere. This is more than just a religious ordinance. It's them to them, for these priests on these different islands to know what's going on and be in tune. I'm just saying, it's ironic, right? It's ironic that everything's happening as is, as it would spiritually, knowing that readers read. And we know that readers, there exists. It's crazy that readers existed among them, and they know that the priests can read and speak for the gods, and for this priest to say this to him, for him to be disappointed, and all right, let's go. That's crazy. I came to this part. He's going to all the doors into the spirit world. That's what he's doing. He's taking advantage of all the gates, all the doors of the spirit world. How can I speak to the king in there? How can I speak to the god? Which door, which god do I have to go speak to get my voice heard inside of the spirits of the realms of the gods? He's going to all the doors. All the exits are covered. He's going everywhere, right? He's went to every tutelar god, however you want to pronounce it, and he's trying to make entrance into all these, as if it was a giant gate of the gods, and there's an opening everywhere, and he's going to all the openings. Like, finally, he's coming to a place where he said, "The gods heard you, boy. They've heard you. Stop asking." It's almost annoying, right? But hey, desperate times calls for desperate measures, no doubt. In the course of the afternoon, the supposed victim of divine vengeance was removed to several other consecrated houses in the same island and was suffered to remain about half an hour or an hour on each, with the hope that she would derive benefit from the auspices of either the deities who were imagined to reside in those places. It's not stopping, it's not slowing him down. Who is this girl to him? This child. The importance of this child to him. For him to finally leave, get to a place and go and put her in front of each god's house on that island for 30 minutes, hour and a half. Move her to the next one. Like, who is this? What is he doing? It ain't stopping him, like I said. Desperate time calls for desperate measure. Removal, however, appeared to make her worse. And at length, she was almost speechless. What did she have? I know there's not much we can diagnose, but what did she have? What are we talking about here? What did she have? That she became better, and then all of a sudden she became worse. If we were just to diagnose it from a medical standpoint, what did she have? Because she got worse. During the night, now, a part of me is saying, there is nothing. The gods have spoken. The gods could have healed her. And this is a man acting in faith. In the scriptures, that lady that bore through the crowd to touch Jesus' robe to heal her, Finau is doing more than that. He's jumping onto ships and sailing to different islands, to different tutelar gods, putting her body in front of each house of God, of the gods, to make his plea heard, right? There are a lot of people I can imagine, and perhaps, some of us would have been thinking the same thing. Sai Aupito. Only because of how he was before to everybody else. There's a lot of people thinking, good for him. Let him suffer like we suffered. Let him go through the anguish and the pain that we went through when he killed our people, when he killed our chiefs, when he killed our fathers or our sons. You know what I mean? I bet there's people like that out there. I'm just saying. Some people are thinking like that. At this point in time right now, of course, we're riding with Finau, bro. He is showing that he really needs this for his daughter. I'm with you, Finau. Let's go. During the night, her father, with anxious solitude, sat by the side of her mat, watching with sighs and tears the progress of her disorder, or the progress of her disorder, period. The next morning, which brought no sign of returning health to enliven the hopes of an afflicted parent, Finau gave directions to proceed to Makave, the place at Vava'u where, as the reader will recollect, Pupunu, Kakahu, and several other great warriors were seized by Finau's orders. Makave. Yeah, remember that? Makave. Remember there? In Vava'u? By the time they had got a little more than halfway to Vava'u, the poor child died. Sawau Mailangi, rest in peace. Immediately, all the female attendants began to lament in a most woeful strain, beating their breasts with violent agitation and exhibiting every mark of sorrow and despair. If you are in Tonga, I'm sure in Polynesia itself, you know what it sounds like. You know what that sounds like. Somebody dies, like you're halfway to Vava'u from Hunga, or where did they go last? Ofu, and she dies. Anybody who's heard the mournings of Polynesian women knows what that sounds like. Bruh, you know what that feels like. Everything. In that tone, in that volume, everything. You know what I'm saying? I remember hearing that as a child. I had a little sister that died in Tonga when we were about the house, and I was 8 or 9. And that's all I heard that day, that morning. It woke me up. That sound woke me up because it was so early in the morning. And you have 5 or 6 or 7 of that sound all at the same time. One of them going up, one of them speaking, one of them all in tune. And it kind of shivers and wakes the soul from a dead sleep. I never wake up that early. You know what I mean? So, on their way over to Ovaʻu, this is what happens. This is the sounds they hear, the sorrows, the sounds of sorrowful Tongan women. But Finau sat in silence and dejection, weeping for the fate of his daughter. That's how men weep in Tonga. In silence and dejection. Yeah, you can, people weep or whatever, they cry now, but we're about to see that that's not how people cry in Tonga. He said that the women wept, the women went buck wild crazy. Away, loud, volume, everything. And here he is, sat in silence and dejection, weeping the fate of his daughter. When you hear the word weep, you hear sounds. But in this context, it seems like it's tears, the amount of tears, a weep of tears. Because he said he sat there in silence and dejection, like he didn't want to accept it. Seen Finau on the ship, on the giant canoe or whatever, moving towards Vava'u. Took all desperate measure to save her. Moving forward in a canoe, all of a sudden finding out she dies. Now weeping in silence, tears. That's all you see. Pain in the face, in the eyebrows. But trying to hold it together. You're the king. Hold it together because this isn't how Tonga men cry. Not with sound. You know, if you can cry, but with tears, do not do it with sound. Tears you can't control. Sound you can. Not for women though, of course. They're gonna let it all out. In a little time, they reached the coast of Ovaʻu and took the body to a large house called Puno. Oh, Powono. The heck? Mariner, Tenga, you spelled it freaking weird. Powono. And I only know that because it says 6 posts. Posts like, house posts that hold the roof up. Powono. That's what it means. Damn, I never knew what that meant. Powono? 6 posts. The body to a large house called Powono. There's a house called Powono. I know a guy named Powono. I know a few guys named Powono. They're named after houses with 6 posts that hold up, and it seems like they're bringing a dead body there. The chief is there. Why would they take him to the Powono? Why would they take her to the Powono? A large house called Powono. 6 posts. On the Malae at Neafu, followed by Finau, his wives, chiefs, matapules, and attendants, all habited in mats. That's what they're called. The big houses on each malae, and Mariner said there's a malae in Vava'u, there's a couple malaes in Vava'u actually. There's a malae in Ha'apai, and each island has a malae purposely for the whether it's showing up and having ordinances like the feeding or the inasi, where they distribute their tributary things that they give to the king. Also, they distribute stuff for they call it the harvest, whatever the word for harvest is. I can't remember what they called it. For the harvest, those are the two main reasons, but they have activities there. They have sports there on the Malays. And the house, there's always a house there for the chief, the king, whoever else Matapun is, to sit under. And that house is called a Powono because 6 posts hold that roof up. Interesting. Now, anybody I see with the name Powono is like, you know where you get your name from, where Powono comes from, the word Powono? 6 posts. The body was laid out on a fine and beautiful hamoa mat, and then washed over with a mixture of oil and water, after which it was anointed with sandalwood. Remember sandalwood we talked about with the movement of sandalwood? Even to this day, sandalwood and tinctures and oils and drops and everything, they use it for scent and, you know, the whole essence and senses and all that, sensual stuff. Sandalwood was used back then as well. But it says right here, she was laid out on a fine, beautiful hamoa mat, and then washed over with a mixture of oil and water, after which it was anointed with sandalwood oil. It must be here noticed that the king had determined, in the event of his daughter's death, not to bury her exactly after the Tonga fashion, but partly according to that, partly agreeable to the custom of Hamoa, and partly according to a fancy of his own. After the body was washed and anointed with oil, it was wrapped up in 14 or 15 yards of fine East India embroidered muslin, which had formerly belonged to one of the officers of the Port-au-Prince. Longer and longer, more and more, we find out that these guys got more than what was described by Mariner and the Port-au-Prince. An East Indian embroidered muslin. What's an embroidered muslin? Let's freaking see what's cracking over here. All right. I just want to check it out and see what a embroidered muslin is. I'm sure it's a mat. All right. I'm sure it's just a mat. Embroidered muslin. Yeah. It's a type of material. That's all it is, type of material. Lavender. Yeah, it's just a type of soft material, like a cloth. Made in India. A lot of things are made in India today. And it may have been an Indian, one of the old productions of the old Indian mats, my friend. All right, here we go. Port-au-Prince. It was, so what he's saying is, Tonga, usually after they die, they have their mourning and all that, and then they bury the body. What he's saying here is that we're not going to do that immediately. But instead, they wash her with oil and water and sandalwood oil and wrapped in East Indian mat. It was next laid in a large cedar chest. It was next laid in a large cedar chest, which had been made on board the ship, the same ship, for the use of Mr. Brown out of some cedar planks taken in a prize. So there's a whole bunch of planks that they gaffled from, they took from South America somewhere, and they had those over here, and Mr. Brown made a chest out of it, and now these guys took it, and now they're basically make a coffin out of it. Over the body were strewed wreaths of flowers made for the purpose by her female attendants. Female attendants. We've talked about attendants also being like handmaids attendants. This is Finau's daughter, 6, 7, 8, or 9, right? Because they didn't keep track of time. Mariner said she looked like she's between 6 and 9 years old. But you would have attendants. Attendants would be either the other mothers and the other siblings, and of Finau's wives and family. So the attendants, and they could be anybody, cousins as well. Orders were now issued by Finau that nobody should wear mats, although it was customary on each solemn occasions, but should dress themselves in new tapas. This is the Hamoa custom. Ooh, Hamoa. This is you right here. This is your custom. Back then, 1800s. And instead of vifi leaves around their necks, he ordered that they should wear wreaths of flowers. This was an idea of his own, okay? As if dressed for some occasion of rejoicing. The chest was placed on 2 large bales of ngatu in the middle of the house, and the body lay thus in state for the space of 20 days. Bruh, you know what's going to happen to that body in 20 days? Anyways, so they have a chest. They probably line it with ngatu and stuff inside. They lay her body in it, in this big chest, and they put it in the powono, the 6-post house, and then that's where they're going to have the funeral. The body's going to lay there for 20 days. Now, in Tonga custom, you're dressed in black and falas, right? The one who are closest to him are dressed in the big falas to represent because you're buried in falas, right? Mariner talked about earlier how everybody who was buried in that big old cemetery at Feretoa, when they lifted that sheet of rock over, and they're gonna do that here. I think this is what the body they do it for, or for Finau, but they're wrapped in fala, mats. In death, they're wrapped all the way covered. But when the people whose family of the person who died, they're wrapped in most mats, and it comes all the way up to represent the fact that we're part of the wrappings of the dead. We're part of this family. This is us, right? We've also talked about some of the customs where the wives, when the chief dies, the wives is buried with her. She's strangled and buried with him, right? So these are all symbolisms of what's going on that we use today as far as the mat wrapping. Well, Finau tells everybody, don't wear mats. Everybody wear brand new tapa. Nice, just wear a nice tapa. Ngatu, right? Nice, clean, like the Ha'amoas do. We're going to do this the Ha'amoa way. And around the neck, instead of the ifi leaves, just do leis of flowers. Okay? All right. So they lay the body there for 20 days in the powono, during which time Mo'ungatupo, Finau's principal wife, oh yeah, remember her, Mo'ungatupo, and all her female attendants remained constantly with the body. Now I'm wondering what female attendants means. Just her and her, because the sister wives of Mo'ungatupo, she was the main one. It would be her sister wives, basically, and any handmaids there to help her assist. But it's very evident that this girl meant a lot to Finau. In the course of the first night, the mourners broke out in a kind of recitative like that on occasion of the death of Tuponiwa, but in a very imperfect way, because Finau had ordered that no appearance of sorrow or sound of lamentation should be made. But in spite of the injunction, they occasionally could not restrain their grief, beating their breasts with every mark of deep felt anguish. It is difficult to conceive the reason of Finau's whimsical conduct on this occasion unless it were, as generally interpreted, an impious and revengeful endeavor to insult the gods by ordering those ceremonies not to be performed which were considered objects of religious duty on such sacred occasions. This tells you the more of the personality of Finau. Because Mariner's interpretation of this is, why would he do this unless it was something of the Hamwa culture for them not to mourn and not to grieve and not to make sounds of anguish, right? If it was the Hamwa culture, but Mariner kind of knows otherwise. Like, no, you grieve, you mourn, you make sounds, you cry, you scream, whatever. But now, Mariner's telling them, I want no sign of grief, no sign of sadness, no sign of nothing. And Mariner's interpreting as he's making them wear brand new, nice tapas and flowers. Now, tapas and flowers, brand new ones, clean ones, you usually wear in ceremonies of celebration. He wants to show the gods that he's celebrating, not grieving in sorrow. That's what Mariner kind of interprets a little bit like. Now he's poking at the gods. Now he's mocking the gods. Why don't you dress like Tonga dresses all the time with the falas, the mats, and everything else? Why do you dress everybody in ceremonial celebration and not of death and grief and, moving somebody into pulotu, which what they've always believed? It shows you the Finau mentality, like, you gods. I'm going to show you that I'm celebrating this. I'm not going to grieve over this. Everybody dressed in costumes of celebration. Damn. Damn. He's telling the gods, damn you. Oh my gosh. Finau. Every morning and evening, provisions and kava were brought for the entertainment of those who attended on the body. That's convenient, right? You go to any funeral, yeah, we're making it to that mix. They're mixing every night, so let's go over there. And you can show face and see, a lot of people use it as a form to show face, some of the kava ceremonies, but, which it is. It's a perfect way to show face, to go to the kava. Anyways, they're mixing over there by the body every night. On the 19th day, it was removed from the cedar chest and deposited in the model of a canoe, about 3 feet and a half long, made for the express purpose and nicely polished by one of Finau's carpenters. This is the Hamoa custom. Any of the Hamoa still here? The Hamoa custom is nice, clean tapas, and now shipping them out on a canoe into the water. By this time, the body had become much inflated and extremely offensive. 20 days above ground, body, 20 days, and they have no way to, prolong the body. Like now they have alcohol and water, and like they used to do it with formaldehyde, but now they just use alcohol and water and other preservatives. But the office of removing it was performed by some Wait. By this time, the body had become much inflated and extremely offensive. But the office of removing it was performed by some foreigners, natives of Hamoa, who were accustomed to suck tasks. What's a suck task? I'm about to say it. All right, here it is. At Hamoa, the Navigator's Islands, it is the custom to keep the dead above ground for a considerable length of time, as above related, as the body during this period is apt to become very inflated, right? The gases and all that start bubbling and everything inside starts rotting. Yeah. It is the duty of the relation to present this happening to a great extent by the practice of a most disgusting operation, making a hole in some part of the abdomen, okay, part of the stomach, the mouth being applied, sucking out the putrescent fluids, and spitting them into a dish, and this is done out of love and affection for the deceased, without any apparent signs of disgust. Mr. Mariner heard this from several natives of Hamoa. So apparently back then in the Hamwa custom and culture, whatever, after the body's dead, they wrap it and they let it lay there for 20 days for whatever reason that they have in custom. And then obviously the body is going to start bloating and swelling because it's not being maintained, iced. You know, it's not drained of the blood or anything else, and it starts bloating. Well, in order for it to stop not bloat, damn, I look bloated. Golly, what the hell? Is they make a hole in the stomach, in the abdomen area. And whoever's related to this person would suck that fluid out and spit it into a dish. That's the Hamwa custom. So that the body doesn't bloat and perhaps explode. Probably they have instances maybe way in the past where bodies have exploded. So in order to keep that and maintain that, they have to make a hole in the abdomen area and suck all the fluids that are making it swell up so that it doesn't do that. Okay? And he says there that those who did it with love and with, compassion. So during the whole of this day and the following night, the body enclosed in the canoe, with the lid closely fastened down, remained in the house. In the meantime, Finau issued orders for a general assembly of all the inhabitants of the island to take place the ensuing morning, and nobody to be absent under any pretext whatsoever, not even that of illness. Bro, see? That's that mob mentality right there. You come to when we call for you, even if you are your son's deathbed or your mother's side when she's dying, when we call, you come. That's the type of call that it seems like he's making. I don't care if you're sick, you're going to be here. Early the following day, all the people according assembled before the house, where there was a large supply of provisions and kava for the conclusion of the ceremony. In the meantime, the body was conveyed to the Faitoka, where it was deposited inside the house without any pomp or form, not within the grave, but on the top of it, that Finau might see the coffin whenever he pleased and take it away with him whenever he went to a distance. We're going to have to do freaking some of this. What did I just read earlier in the Ha'amoa custom? On the 19th day, it was removed from the cedar chest and deposited in the model of a canoe. Oh, okay. Her body was moved out of the chest and put into a canoe. A small canoe, like a coffin canoe. About 3 feet, half feet long, made for the express purpose and nicely polished by one of Finau's carpenters. This is the Ha'amoa custom. By this time, the body had become inflated. Okay. So it wasn't in the water. It was in the canoe. What the heck? I was assuming the canoe was in water because I didn't know that it was a coffin canoe. A little coffin canoe for a little child. In the meantime, Finau issued orders. Everybody should be there. Early the following day, all the people accordingly assembled before the house, where there was a large supply of provisions. Okay. In the meantime, the body was conveyed to the Faitoka, where it was deposited inside the house without any pomp or form. Not within the grave, but on the top of it. So he didn't put it inside the hole, on top of it. Okay, so there's a lot of matapure stuff right here for any matapures out there. Because nowadays, when we go to the grave and do the grave ceremony with the matapure doing the grave speech, the body has to be in the ground when he makes that speech. Right now, the body is above ground, or it's not all the way in, but they're saying you can still see the top of. In the meantime, the body was conveyed to the Faitoka, where it was deposited inside the house without any pomp or form, not within the grave, but on the top of it, that Finau might see the coffin whenever he pleased and take it away with him whenever he went to a distance. Okay. Let's see. On this extraordinary occasion, which the caprice of Finau rendered a scene of rejoicing rather than mourning, after the provisions and kava were shared out, they began the entertainments of wrestling and boxing as usual at festivals. Remember we talked about the wedding of Moingangongo? The Hamoa people came because he brought two Hamoa wives from Hamoa because he was being a tributary chief in Hamoa. Went to the wedding and they had boxing matches of the families in Hapai going head up with the families from Hamoa. So the Tongans and the Hamoas were boxing, they were wrestling, they were club fighting, everything in the ceremony of the wedding. Now they're doing it in the ceremony of the funeral. Okay? Okay, after the men had shown their strength and dexterity in these feats by single engagements, the king gave orders that all the women who resided north of Mu'a should arrange themselves on one side, ready to combat all the women who resided south of Mu'a. He's making north of Mu'a and south of Mu'a go toes, bruh. Who were to arrange themselves on the other. So the men are going toes, right? And now Finau said, king gave orders that all the women, the Mu'a is the main, it means capital. Mu'a means capital. Tonga, Mu'a is a village which they believe was the capital back then in Tonga, right? Because they called it Mu'a. In Vava'u, there's a Mu'a in Hapai. Basically, the capital of these areas or these islands, they called the Mu'a. And now, at the funeral ceremony, Finau's making the girls in North Mu'a go with the Sureño Mu'as, right? The Norteño Mu'as and the Sureño girls are about to go head up. It was not a very rare occurrence for women to fight in pairs on occasion of rejoicing. But a general engagement like this, with about 1,500 women on each side, golly, that's a cat fight. It was a thing altogether new, right? Damn, what's going on? 1,500 women on each side was a thing altogether new and beyond all precedent and quite unexpected at a funeral ceremony. Mariners saying there's no precedent for this. They have never heard of this, right? 1,500 women on each side at this Sawau Mailangi girl's funeral. Hamoa girl, apparently. Or she obviously had a Hamoa name. It doesn't say whether she was adopted. It just says that it's Finau's daughter from one of his wives. I don't know. So I'm assuming the wife was Hamoa for her to have a Hamoa name and whatnot, right? Because in the custom back then, a sister would name him. And now if a sister of this person or a fahu of this person would name a daughter, it would be Hamoa girl, fahu. Anyway, that's all theoretical, but it makes sense, connecting the dots. The women, so we're in Vava'u right now, and there's two sides, the Norteños and Sureños. Women, 1,500 on each side, about to go toes at this celebration or this funeral celebration. The women, however, readily engaged and kept up the contest with obstinate bravery for about an hour, without a foot of ground being lost or gained on either side. Oh, snap. Can you imagine 1,500 women, 1,500, bro, coming together in battle like freaking on the end game when, Avengers Endgame, and Thanos' guys and the Avengers go at it? 1,500 women of Vava'u just going at it, and they're saying for about an hour, and none of them gave way. They just stayed right there going toes. Oh my gosh, I would love to see that on film. Nor would the battle have subsided then if Finau, seeing the preserving courage of these heroines, had not ordered them to desist the battle having cost them several sprained ankles and broken arms. They wouldn't have stopped unless Finau told them to. If Finau didn't say, hey, okay, filma, you know what I mean? Then you gotta, because remember, back then, it's just tapas. Everybody wore tapas. Breasts weren't part of modesty then. Because breasts were only known for feeding babies. Where breast now is, feeds the adults too. You know what I'm saying? But back then, breasts and everything, they were, swinging, fighting. You would have had to send for 3,000 women to be going head up and none of them giving way for them to finally Finau said, okay, filma. Damn. Can you imagine the sounds of the beating? He said broken ankles, broken arms, still just going at it. In a celebration. They fought with a great deal of steadiness and gave fair hits without pulling one another's hair. Damn. When do you see a fight with girls and them not pulling hair? And how would freaking that was probably impressive for Mariner to see, damn, they ain't even pulling hair. They just freaking swinging. You know what I'm saying? The men now divided themselves in like manner into two parties and began a general engagement which was persisted in a considerable time with much fury till at length that party which belonged to the side of the island on which Finau dwelt began to give way. Basically, the Hamos kicking the Vava'u guy's ass, if I'm not mistaken. Much fury till at length that party which belonged to the side of the island on which Finau dwelt began to give way. Finau dwelt in Vava'u. Those guys began to give way. Instantly, he rushed from the house in which he was seated to reanimate his men by his presence and exertions, which he affected to such a degree that the opposite party, in their turn, fell back and were completely beaten off the ground. Basically, the two sides were going at it, and it seems like the Vava'u guys were kind of getting their ass kicked. And then Finau jumped in on the Vava'u side and fought forward and eventually beat them down. But of course, nobody's gonna kick Finau's ass. He's like the main guy and the main king, If there was a king that I knew, I'd be like, I'll go away type thing, because this nigga don't play. He plays for real. This contest being now ended, the company dispersed, each to his respective home, while Finau retired to a small house, which had been built since his daughter's death near Powono, the large house on the Malae. And there, feeling himself much exhausted, he lay down to rest from his fatigue. He had not been long in this posture before he found himself very ill. His respiration became difficult. He turned himself repeatedly from side to side. His lips became purple, and his underjaw seemed convulsed. From time to time, he groaned deeply and most horribly, and the bystanders were much affected. The women shed a profusion of tears, and the men were occupied, no doubt, with the thoughts of what commotion might happen in the event of his death. What blood might be spilt and what battles lost and won. So Finau's very ill. He's sick right now. Looks like he's about to go. Let's see. The king, in the meanwhile, seemed perfectly sensible of his situation. He attempted to speak, but the power of utterance was almost denied him. One word alone could be clearly distinguished. Fonua, which means land or country. Hence, it was supposed that he meant to express his anxiety respecting the mischiefs and disturbances that might happen to the country in the event of his death. So he's laying there, he's rolling back and forth. Scene at night in his house. Finau Ulukalala rolls back and forth. He's like, oh, Yahweh. Ah, Yahweh. Finau Ulukalala, about to die. Finally, he couldn't speak, lays there, and eventually he utters something because he couldn't be understood. Finawa. Finawa. That's what they're end scene. That's the description. After waiting in a little time, finding he did not get better, the prince and a young chief named Vungi or Vuki, Vuki. That's a somewhat popular name in Vava'u. Vuki. Dude, I gotta write all these names down from Vava'u and the names down from Hapai in case I run into some people and some, because these might be your guys' ancestors, bro. Young chief named Vuki went out to procure one of Finau's children by a female attendant to sacrifice it to the gods. Damn! That their anger might be appeased and the health of its father restored. So Vuki, a young chief, what do you say? Young chief named Vuki. Afterwards, funny did not get better. Young prince, the prince. So he must be Finau's son. The prince and a young chief named Vuki went out to procure one of Finau's children by a female attendant. See, this is what I mean by when I say a female attendant. One of Finau's female attendants or one of his wives, his sister wives. So he went to go children by a female attendant or just an attendant, like a midwife, or not a midwife, a handmaid, to sacrifice it to the gods that their anger might be appeased and the health of its father restored. So Vuki, a chief, a prince, one of Finau's sons, runs out and goes grabs a baby that was one of Finau's kids from one of his wives to bring it back to sacrifice it, right? Like they did before in the before story, to sacrifice it so that the gods would forgive Finau and save Finau's life. For further particulars respecting this ceremony, see page 9. Okay, the younger Finau used often to express his regret that the gods were so relentless as to require such cruel sacrifices. So Mariner's saying, back when Finau was younger, he thought that the gods were relentless, or like they're so unforgiving that they would require the life of a child for a chief. Wherever and whenever that started in Tonga, who knows? For sure, it ended when Christianity showed up, or at least when England showed up to become a protectorate of Tonga. For sure, it disappeared then. But Vuki went to go grab one of the kids to sacrifice. Golly, Tonga sacrificed kids. That's crazy. They found the child in a neighboring house, unconsciously sleeping in its mother's lap. They took it away by force and, retiring with it behind an adjacent faitoka, strangled it as quickly as possible with a band of ngatu. Savage, yeah. Barbaric, more likely. They just went and grabbed the kid immediately. We got to save this chief's life. This is how much they believed in this kind of stuff. We have to sacrifice a child. He, what's his name? Vuki runs out, grabs him, brings him. Let's go take him by the faitoka. On hollowed ground, we should do this. Boom. Wrap the ngatu, kills the baby. All right, we're cool. We're good. We're good. We're good. That's freaking crazy if you did that today. Right? That I'm glad we don't do anymore. Shoot, forget about it. They then carried it with all speed before two consecrated houses and a grave at each place, burying or hurrying over a short but appropriate prayer to the god to interfere with the other gods in behalf of Finau. Appropriate prayer to the god to interfere with the other gods in behalf of Finau, and to accept of this sacrifice as an atonement for his crimes. So they think that there are gods coming to take Finau's soul. So they're saying, oh, shoot, in order for us to stop the gods from taking his soul, we got to go grab a baby, one of his sons, because he's a high chief. The baby's going to be pure. Let's take him over there to hallowed ground, choke him, boom. They bring it back, the baby back to a different god and sacrifice it to a different god. Here, take this sacrifice of ours. Now go tell those gods to stop taking Finau from us. That's what these people believe, bro. They believe that this is what's happening in the spirit world as they perform their duties here on earth. They now return to the place of, where Finau lay, but found him with scarcely any sign of life. Speechless and motionless, his heart, however, could be just felt to a beat. In the meanwhile, he was placed on sort of hand barrow, which had been just made on purpose, fancying there were still some hopes of his recovery, and carried to different consecrated houses, although he had, almost beyond a doubt, breathed his last with violent struggles 10 minutes before. They make a wheelbarrow out of something. They fancy something, piece of round. I'm sure they just made, flat wheelbarrow sticks. And they're pushing him in front of the houses of the tutelar gods. Pushing him there. Priest, say a prayer. Okay, let's push him to the next god. Priest, say a prayer. All right, now let's push him to the house of a next god. Because all these houses, whether you're in Hawaii or Vava'u or Tonga, there were houses dedicated to their gods. And there's different gods in Hawaii, there's different gods in Vava'u, there's different gods in Tonga Tapu, because they're ancient people. They're people of ancient, where they turn into gods in the spirit world, and their belief that they should have a portal of communication by dedicating land and a house to that person. We get to speak to them. This is how we speak to them. This is our door. This is the intercom to the spirit world. They believe that. They do truly, honestly believe that's how it sounded. And all the dedication of holy property, they made it as if they were building a stargate to the spirit world, right? So they're pushing them to all the house of the gods, praying. Priest, sit down, leave kava there, pray. After done, boom, 20, 30 minutes. And then after a few houses, they realize he's not breathing. We opened up one of these portals and he entered into it, basically, is what we've done. The gods came and took him. We sacrificed that baby, one of his kids, but the gods came and took him nonetheless. But the time of death hasn't been declared yet. It took him a little bit. He was first carried to the house dedicated to Tariai Tupo, where an appropriate prayer to the god was hurried over the corpse. For it was now perhaps nothing more than a corpse. Was then conveyed to the house of the god Tui Fuapulotu, where a similar prayer was preferred. Not contented with this, they next carried it to the grave of a female chief named Sintakala. Sintakala. Anybody have that name? Sinitakala? In Vava'u? Let me know. But Tuifua is a name. Pulotu is a name. I know that Taritui is a name. But Tariai Tupo is a name. Vuki. We need to freaking write all these freaking names down, dude. There's a lot of them. Whose spirit was in like manner invoked. So Sinitakala. Some hope still remaining. The body was at last carried a mile and a half up the country on the road towards Feretoa to the residence of Tuitonga, their great divine chief at Niulolo. Niulolo, is that a name? I know Vava'u is called the Lolo, Koilolo, eh? But Niulolo is a Tuitonga in Vava'u. Having arrived here, it was conveyed to Tuitonga's cookhouse and placed over the hole in the ground where the fire is lighted. And being thought acceptable to the gods as a mark of extreme humiliation, that the great chief of all the Hapai Islands and Vava'u should be laid where the meanest class of mankind were accustomed to operate. What they're saying is, they take them down to Niulolo's, right, Tuitonga's house, and they take him back to the back house to the lantu, basically, right? The kitchen area, the cooking area. And they throw his body in the hole, thinking that, all right, let's show the gods that he's willing to humiliate himself by throwing himself, not into the hole, but over the area where they usually throw the umu in. Because this is where the meanest, they call them the meanest people, right? Which is the lowest in society. The cooks are the lowest in society. If we can throw Finau Ulukalala, the highest in society, down over into a hole where the lowest in society dwell to humiliate him before the gods, maybe the gods will give him his life back. Whose idea was that? Okay. Because he's the king of Hapai Mava'u, obviously. All this time, Tuitonga remained in his own house, for his high character, as a descendant of the gods, rendered it altogether unnecessary and even degrading and improper that he should interfere in this matter. So not even Tuitonga was going to interfere. It's improper. Like, it's crazy that a Tuitonga would look at these people handling the body of a king, right? He's an Aki. For him to think that they're going to throw him over there by the hole, by the umu, or into the umu. What is there here? Placed over the hole. So he's placed over the umu. Now, if it's a big umu, then he's inside of the freaking umu. But it says they placed over the hole. In the ground where the fire is lighted. So he's not in the hole. He's not in the umu. This being thought acceptable to the gods. Okay. By this time, his friends, losing all hopes and being convinced that he was really dead, brought the body back to Neyafu, where it was placed in the large house on the Malae called Bowono. There, my friends, ends the toils of Finau Ulukalala. That's how he dies. That's how he ends his life in Vava'u. On his way to, or in Feretoa, but returned to Neyafu. Finau then becomes the infamous king of Vava'u from there on. Right? Damn, that's freaking kind of crazy to process that we lost Finau now. Finau's gone. Finau Ulukalala is now no more. That goes to now, it's like, what then happens to Mariner, right? And I've read this before, like I said, but to read it live and to say things out loud and to even expound on it more, it's like, golly, this freaking story gets even crazier the more you read and talk about it out loud. In the meanwhile, many chiefs and warriors were secretly repaired to their spears, which were tied up in bundles, and put them loose, ready to be seized at a moment's notice, and selected out their clubs, arranged them in order, expecting every moment the shout of war from one quarter or another. If we take a cursory view of the state of affairs at this critical juncture, we shall find that such apprehensions were by no means groundless. True. Everybody got their war. Now they're, back in Neyafu with the dead body of Finau Ulukalala. It doesn't even say whether we buried his daughter yet. Anyway, oh yeah, this is at the funeral he died. He died at the celebration of the funeral. And I'm sure many people are going to think, well, it's because you're celebrating this way. Because remember, he jumped in and started helping the Va'u guys fight the other guys, right? I'm assuming the Feretoa guys or maybe even Hamoa people. It doesn't specify, but it says north and south. I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this as a punishment to Finau himself for all the many disorderly conducts he's had against the gods. But now Finau Ulukalala is gone. Neyafu then prepares all their weapons. All the spears were tied up. Now they're untied and they're spread out, make it accessible. The clubs were passed out. Hey, Gautama, arm ourselves because now it's our ass. After all that's happened here in Vava'u, Finau being the head king of the person who led all this, it's about to go down. We don't know what's going to happen. Feretoa or Makabe, what's going to happen? Okay? The late Hao was no sooner deceased than all those principal chiefs who had, or imagined they had, any claims to the government of Vava'u were expected to take up arms to assert their cause. There's a lot of chiefs in Vava'u already still. Finau got rid of Pupunu and all the other guys, but there are a lot of guys who are chiefs who are like, oh, if Finau goes down, they're assuming, okay, Vava'u is ours. Let's go take it back. And to send all the Hapai guys back to Hapai. Among these was Vunalahi. Remember, there was another Vuna we talked about, Vunalahi. Otherwise, Tu'akalau. So Vunalahi's Matapuna name perhaps was Tu'akalau, because it says, among these, Vunalahi, probably a high chief, or more likely a high chief, otherwise Tu'akalau, who, it may be recollected, returned from Ha'moa with the late king's son. Okay, yeah, it is him, Vunalahi, or Matapuna named Tu'akalau. Tu'akalau, that sounds familiar. Oh! Wait, no, that's Tu'akalau. Dang, I'd have to ask his name. We call him Tu'a, but is it Tu'akalau? Anyway, Vava'u, Tu'akalau. There's your Matapura name from back in the day. Vunalahi was his name. He's the one who ran to Ha'moa and came back with Finau's son, Moigangongo, and was chief of Vava'u at the period of the Tonga Revolution, being afterwards disposed of his island by Finau. Okay, there you go. Tupotoa was another chief who it was thought would put in a claim on account of his strength in fighting men, and for having killed the late chief of Vava'u, Tupauniwa. A third chief was Finau Fisi, the late Hao's brother, right? Finau Ulukalala's brother, who perhaps, Finau Fisi, oh, that was, Ulukalala's uncle. I thought Finau Fisi was Finau Ulukalala's uncle, but it says right here, a third chief, Finau Fisi, the late Hao's brother, that would have been Finau Fisi, Finau Ulukalala's brother, who perhaps had a greater claim than either on account of his relationship. Yeah. Finau Fisi is Finau Ulukalala's brother. He was also a brave warrior and considered to be a man of great prudence and wisdom. But although brave, when occasion called forth his courage, he was remarkable for sage counsel and for strong aversion to every kind of conspiracy or disturbance, and it was supposed by some that he would not lay any claim. So Finau's brother, Finau Fisi, he was a chief in, he was obviously a tributary chief in Fiji, unless they named him after Finau Fisi because of a relation. They would have done that out of relation also. Was more wisdom prone. He was more speech. So he wouldn't have, he's not as warmongering as Ulukalala. Damn. That's a freaking movie right there. Get into the psyche of Finau Ulukalala and compared to the abstract version of him, which is Finau Fisi, his brother, and he wouldn't have went on conquest, but would rather, says right here, remarkable for sage counsel and for strong aversion to every kind of conspiracy or disturbance. So he would rather be diplomatic about it, right? Diplomacy seemed like his main thing, where military force was his brother's main thing. That's crazy. They're brothers. Such was the opinion entertained by the prince and his party. So I don't know if you're talking about Prince. Finau originally had two brothers, Finau Fisi and Tupo Niwa, but by different mothers. Finau Fisi is a brother, Finau Tupo Niwa is a brother, but they don't share mothers with Finau Ulukalala. Interesting. Finau's lengthened name was Finau Ulukalala. But the proper family name is Finau, but no member of the royal family is allowed to assume the family name till his appointment to the sovereignty, unless his father chose to give it him as a sort of first name, to which his own proper name is attached, as was the case with Finau Fisi, Finau's brother. So what he's saying is, Finau Mafala, Finau Ulukalala's dad, gave Finau Fisi the first name Finau before he was, what does it say? Assumed family name until appointment to the sovereignty. Basically, that's what I was talking about as far as once they get into authority, then their whole family would be given the name Finau. The proper is allowed to assume the family name to his appointment to the sovereignty unless his father chose to give it as a sort of first name. There you go. You are going to be called Finau as a title when you become a chief. Unless your dad names you Finau as a first name, then they're just going to call you Finau. So Finau Fisi. They did that for Finau Fisi. Where Finau Ulukalala, they called him Ulukalala until he became a chief, and then they called him Finau Ulukalala. That's what basically Finau is saying. Finau Fisi, my dad named him Finau. So he grew up being called Finau. But Fisi was his name to determine the difference between. So that's basically, Fisi is probably his middle name. Okay, moving on. That's Finau Fisi. Yeah. Apprehensions were also entertained respecting the chief Vuki. Yep, remember we talked about Vuki, Finau's other son, who assisted in strangling the child. For though it was not supposed he would lay claim to the sovereignty, yet being known to be strongly in the interest of Tupo To'a, his conduct required to be strictly watched. This guy's like Tupo To'a. We better watch this guy, or he's going to end up taking Vava'u. These were the chiefs whose behavior at this moment the young prince had to notice with a watchful eye. He had considerable confidence, however, in the sincerity of his uncle, and Tupo To'a was at the Ha'apai Islands. Okay. Vunalahi, Vuki, Finau Fisi. What the heck? What? Okay. All right. Such was the state of political affairs at the time of Finau's death. As soon as his body was deposited on the bales of Ngatu, as before mentioned, one of his daughters, a beautiful girl of about 15, who stood by at the time, went almost frantic with excess of sorrow. The expressions of her grief were at first in loud and frequent screams or in broken exclamations. See, we never hear about the children. He has a 15 or 16-year-old daughter, right? And Mariner never knew their ages, but it seems like there was a lot of them. It doesn't go specify on the wives either, because Mariner is just telling the story as if, yeah, and then, Tupo Mo'unga, she's the main wife. Telling story like that, like, with as much detail as he possibly can. And we'll get into the next book is going to be a lot of details, the next volume. But a daughter runs in. So I'm assuming Moenga Ngongo is who we're talking about. He's got to be careful for Tupo Toa, Vuki, Vunalahi, Finau Fisi, Finau, Ukalala's brother. Like, he's got to be careful for a lot of people that wants to take over Vava'u. O Yahweh, si tamai. O Yahweh, alas, O my father, alas, O Yahweh, right? The pleading and the cries of sorrow begin. Her sorrow was so great that at times she appeared quite bereft of reason, and her truly pathetic expression of it, joined to those of the widows and female attendants of the late king, all beating their breasts and screaming from time to time, rendered the house truly a house of mourning. Beyond the power of imagination to picture, the place was lighted up at night by lamps with coconut oil, used only on such occasions, presenting a scene of impossible, still more affecting than that which happened on the occasion of Tupo Niwa's death. Remember Tupo Niwa's death? We talked about it. This is even more. There's a lot more women screaming, crying, O Yahweh, so on and so forth. And this is the daughter is one of them. In the course of the night, Mr. Mariner went into the house several times, partly out of curiosity indeed, but principally moved by feelings of regret for the loss of his great and kind patron. See? Now he's showing affection to Finau Ulukalala, this great and kind patron. For though he could not in every point of view admire him as a man, yet he could not but esteem and reverence him as a benefactor. Yeah, si Fa'afa, si Mariner, si Tokyugamea, He went in there out of curiosity sometimes into the house where he's like, but for the most part, he went in feeling sorrow, appreciative, but regret that he's gone, right? It says right here, he could not every point of view, right, admire him as a man, yet he could not but esteem and reverence him as a benefactor, as a father. So that's anybody who has a father when they die. There's a lot of things that we may, resent about them, or about our fathers. But we can't help but feel, compassionate because he was a good dad, right? He had received him from great and numerous favors, and notwithstanding his faults, there was something in his character which commanded respect. And Mr. Mariner felt that in losing him, he had sustained a very great loss. Finau Ulukalala built up his personality, built up his kingship, his kingdom, his chiefdom, everything, to the point where he was respected, right? And if you were in the mob, and a lot of the behaviors of the Tongans back then remind me of mob behavior. The way they whack each other, the way they love each other, the way they secretly assassinate each other. A lot of commonalities in that. But all family guys, all good guys, right, who love their families. For him to realize, dang, this guy, man, of all he did, he was respected. Fear, love, or otherwise, he was respected. And now, in a sense, Mariner lost a great protection because nobody touched him because of he was a made guy, right? The prince checked him in these frequent visits to the house. We're talking about Moingangolo, urging that as he was a man, he ought to feel as a man and not mingle his sorrows with those of women. So the women are in the Powono. Most of the Matapules and the man and the guys, they're sitting outside. Excuse me. Although, oh snap! On the Malae, everybody else is faikavaing on the Malae. It's the women that are in there crying and mourning and everything, right? And here we have, I'm assuming it's Moingangongo because it says the prince, which would have been this Finau's main wife's son, oldest, sees Mariner going in and out, right? He's probably crying in there, coming out, but he's telling him, look, hey, it says right here, the prince checked him in these frequent visits. Checked them. Damn, that's crazy. John Martin said the prince checked him in these frequent visits to the house, urging that as he was a man, you're a man, he ought to feel as a man and not mingle his sorrows with those of the women. Tangata. Koe, tangata koe. O i ke tonu ke fuhuhu holo pehe ke mingolo o mamahi mo mamahi filmatua. Koe me ia filmatua. Bro, cuz. Damn. Don't go and cry in there like that and freaking mingle too much like that because that's what women do. That's a woman thing, right? If he wished to express his love for Finau, who had adopted him as a son and had him give the name of one of whom he lost some years before, he should demonstrate that love and respect for the memory of so good a father by engaging his attentions in the interests of his family, particularly in those of himself, who was his lawful heir, and not show his affliction by a silly profusion of tears and sighs, which was beneath the exalted character of a warrior. We talked about how the discipline of Tonga was back then, but this is a perfect description, like bars. You know what I mean? O te ke tō huhu loro pehe o tangi mo mamahi mo whinimatua. Ko mea whinimatua. Ha o koi ki heni o whae mea koe ai tangata. This is what the men do. Go cook. Go whaikava. Go talk stories. Go tell, you've been through a lot. Go tell somebody something. Let the women do their thing. Right? That's crazy how he put it. And not show his affliction by a silly profusion of tears and sighs, which was beneath the exalted character of a warrior. Kau tama. Ai ke ngari tangata. Ho hu holo. Te te fu hu holo mo tai ke fine o tangi mo fine matua. That's what do you notice? Can't you see only the women are in there. In the Powono crying and stuff. Yeah, we go in there and Feiluaki. After that, everybody's doing what men do. That place is lit. People can see who goes in there. And after they see you keep going in there, they're going to be like, is he in the women's side of things? What's going on? That tells you, right? Nowadays and these days, there's a lot of things where, I don't know who and what culture that they put the the homosexuality and all that stuff in, on the forefront as if it's part of the culture. This is a part of the culture right here. Moingango just barely said, and we've been saying it this whole story. Part of the culture. The difference between man and woman is this. They're doing what women do. Come do what the men do. About the middle of the night, no actual disturbance had taken place, but some of the prince's confidants, who were dispersed about to be on the watch, brought intelligence to Vuna. Oh, no, brought intelligence that Vuna was holding secret conferences with some of the natives of Vava'u. Vuna's in conspiracy. Didn't Vuna run to Moingangongo? Vunalahi, Tuakalau. Yeah, I know Tuakalau. That's a Vava'u name? Tuakalau. And Vuna did go and escape to Hamoa, to Moingangongo, to hide from Finau Ulukalala, and now Vuna is now plotting on his homeboy that he ran away from his father to Hamoa just to run away from Finau Ulukalala. Okay, Moingangongo, let's go. Vuna's, okay. The prince, however, thought it advisable not to take any active measures, nor to appear to notice it. Okay, so he's got the cunningness of his dad. I'm gonna act like I don't even know. He therefore merely ordered his spies to keep a strict eye upon their proceedings and to obtain all the information they could without incurring suspicion. Okay, so he's sending out the spies. Hey, you guys go keep watching, but just let everybody act like nothing's going on, like we don't know, right? Spies in the freaking Tongan Islands, bro. Freaking Mission Impossible type stuff. MI6. Mahari. MI6 Vava'u Kautama. At the same time, he resolved in his own mind, as soon as the consent of the people should establish his authority, to banish all suspicious chiefs to the Hapai Islands. So Moingangongo is saying, all right, just make sure let's go and send out the spies, find out who's conspiring right now. Because as soon as this funeral is over, I'm sending everybody to Hapai. There you go. About an hour afterwards, he learned that Vuki, the preceding day, had ordered sundry parties of his men to post themselves behind the bushes on each side of the road in Niulalo. Niulalo. Was it Niulalo the other time, or was that Niulolo? Because I remember seeing something. Oh, that's Niulolo, Divine Chief. But there's a place, Road to Niulalo. During the time that Finau's body was being carried there, with orders to rush out and kill all who accompanied the body in case a fit opportunity presented itself. Vuki. I could have swore it said Vuki was Finau's son, bro. I could have swore. It says Vuki is, right? After waiting a little time, finding he did not get better, the prince and a young chief named Vuki. Oh, the prince. Oh, so Moingangongo and Vuki went out to procure Finau's children. So Moingangongo and Vuki are the ones that choked one of the babies to save Finau, but it didn't happen. But Vuki, oh, damn. That's crazy. Because now Moingangongo and Vuki is planning, when they walk the body to the cemetery, Vuki is planning to kill everybody that's carrying the body, and then that'll give him the power of Invava'u. That's Vuki's plan. Vuki is who Moingangongo, the son of Finau Ulukalala, Vuki and Moingangongo, when Finau Ulukalala was dying, they ran out and grabbed one of the babies of one of Finau's wives and strangled him. Vuki was Moingangongo's partner in that ordinance. But no such opportunity having offered, his men had assembled armed along with him at a house near the waterside, with his canoe close at hand, and had been there all the preceding part of the night. The prince also ordered that no notice should be taken of his hostile position, but that all his own men should keep themselves well armed and in perfect readiness to meet the enemy in case of a revolt, and dispatch men to watch as narrowly as possible other chiefs whom he began to think might be connected with Vuki. This is crazy wartime stuff, y'all. And this is after the death of Finau Ulukalala. This is what we're talking. It's crazy. During the remainder of the night, no disturbance took place. In the morning, as soon as it was light, the people began to assemble on the Malai out of respect to the departed chief and sat down on the ground, waiting for the commencement of the ceremonies, usually on such extraordinary occasions. So Vuki planned, and now Moingangongo the next day. We're having the funeral of Finau Ulukalala. So this is the funeral of Ulukalala with all the conspiracies going on. Not only do they got to have a funeral of a great chief or a king, but they also got to watch out for anybody, mobsters. Like when, remember on the movie Godfather, when it was Godfather 2. Once, when Michael Corleone went to the baptism of his niece or his nephew, he had everybody whacked, right? All the enemies whacked, enemies of the family. Now, right now, they're at a funeral. Finau's at a funeral, and they got to watch out for all the conspiracies for somebody get whacked. In the meantime, the prince and his uncle Finau Fisi, so Moingango and Finau Fisi, prepared kava at a neighboring house and presented it there to the priest of Tupotautai. Out of respect to that god who was now become the tutelar deity. I don't like saying tutelar. Tutelar sounds much more tutelar. Deity of the young prince. Oh, so Tupotautai become the tutelar deity of the young prince. Oh, okay. So remember, Finau Ulukalala, his main god was Tariai Tupo. Tupotautai becomes the deity of the young prince, Moingangongo. By the mouth of his priest, the god desired him not to fear rebellion. For who should dare to rebel against the chief who was the peculiar care of the powers of Pulotu? He commanded him, moreover, to reflect on the circumstances of his father's death as a salutary lesson to himself. Your father, said the divinity, is now no more. But why did he die? Because he was disrespectful to the gods. Interesting. The conference here ended a short time after the prince, while reflecting on the words of the oracle, was addressed by a woman who was sitting behind him in waiting, and who was much respected by the late king and his family, on account of her having given him some information respecting a real or supposed conspiracy on the part of the Vava'u chiefs, Pupunu, Kakahu, and others, who were seized in consequence that Makave and afterwards put to death. Consequence at Makave, yeah. Remember the Pupunu Kakahu that happened at Makave? All right. This woman remarked to the prince that his father, just before he was taken ill, had sent 2 men to her to procure a rope, she having the care of a storehouse, with orders to bring it to him secretly. These 2 men, whose names were Tuhengi and Popoto, dang, freaking, yeah, Mariner just spelled these things wrong. That's why tattoo is spelled like that. Because Mariner spelled it Tattow as tatau. Toehengi and Puputu or Popoto, the former son of Tupo Puku, a priest, the latter a cook. Oh, okay. Toehengi is son of Tupo Puku, a priest, and Puputu or Popoto, Popoto, Popoto. So Popoto means intelligent. Son of a cook. So he was low in society. Happening now to be present, the prince turned to them and asked if they knew the purpose for which his father wanted this rope, whom he meant to bind with it. Hearing this question, Mr. Mariner, who was sitting close to him, exclaimed, "What? Did you not know that he intended to bind and afterwards to kill Tupotea, the priest of Tupototai, to be revenged on this god for not bringing about his daughter's recovery?" Bro, Finau Ulukalala was pissed if he told this lady who had a store to go get me a rope. I'm going to kill the priest of the god Tupotea. His name is Tupototai. We talked about him earlier when Finau Ulukalala went to him. I'm gonna go kill him, right? Because it says right here, Mariner knew what he had it for. So Moingangongo says, "Who's he meant to bind this with?" And Mariner says, "Wait, what? Did you not know that he intended to bind and afterwards to kill Tupotea, the priest of Tupototai, to be revenged on this god for not bringing about his daughter's recovery?" Okay, we got a footnote. This intention of the king had only been cautiously whispered about among a few chiefs of Matapules that were constantly with him. And his sudden sickness and speedy death, which prevented him putting his threats into execution, had so occupied everybody's thoughts that the circumstance for a time was forgotten. Okay. Moingangoa didn't know that his dad wanted to kill the priest of the gods. That tells you, Finau was a freaking G to the end, but he was a freaking treacherous guy to the end. You know what I mean? The gods aren't going to give me my daughter's health back. I'm going to take their priest, their mouthpiece here on earth. I'm going to take him. And Mariner just barely let Moingangongo know this. This fact was afterwards confirmed by other persons, and particularly by certain warriors who had actually received orders to seize Tupotea and murder him. Thus was a plan of sacrilegious wickedness brought to light, which made all who now heard it for the first time shudder. Let's see. Nope. Gotta see if this bug is working again. Somali flag. Cowboys flag. Yeah, okay. Take on Filipinos. Oh, that's a whole new discussion. Sorry, I'm not reading as I freaking go along. So I'm not reading as I go along. I'm freaking engulfed in this freaking story because the ancestors are taking me back into the past. Tenga. All right, and then everybody. So even to this day, and this is sacrilegious. They all believe this is sacrilegious. Why would you do this? How could you do this, Finau? How could you think this? For you to think that it's a good idea to tie up the priest. Remember I told you that all the priests and all the houses of the gods were portals to the spirit world, and the priests were the representatives or the voice of the gods. Their spirit comes through the house of the gods and possesses the priest, and the priest speaks for the gods. And he was so mad at the god, what was it? Tupotea, or Tupototai. He was so mad at Tupototai, the god, that he wanted to kill Tupototai's voice, representative here on earth, Tupotea. Damn. He was willing to commit that sacrilegious act. That's crazy. In anybody's freaking culture, Finau Ulukalala was a motherfucking guy, all right? He was a guy. Whatever guy you want to judge him as, but he was one of those dudes. Like, savage to no end. Mr. Let's see. Okay. No wonder, for such was the general exclamation. No wonder that he died. A chief with such dreadful intentions? Mr. Mariner then stated in addition that he had heard the king say more than once, a few days before he died, how unmindful are the gods of my welfare. But no, it is not the decree of the gods in general. It is to that vexatious Tupo that I owe my misfortunes. Damn. He's even blaming the freaking priest. He does not exert himself for my good. But wait a little. I'll be revenged. His priest shall not live long. In those days, anybody who heard this or heard Finau talk like this probably would have killed Finau themselves. For you to speak against the gods, that's sacrilegious, right? That's blasphemy. That you would even think to kill the God's representative and voice on earth, right? This is his intercom speaker that you wanted to kill him. Footnote says Finau had often stated to Mr. Mariner his doubts that there were such beings as the gods. See, that's another thing that we talked about earlier that I don't think Finau really believes in gods. But Finau has expressed some of these doubts to Mariner. He thought that men were fools to believe what the priests told him or told them. Mr. Mariner expressed his wonder that he should doubt their existence when he acknowledged that he had more than once felt himself inspired by the spirit of Mumoi, a former Hau of Tonga. True, replied the king. There may be gods, but what the priests tell us about their power over mankind, I believe to be all false. Okay? Finau had doubts. Finau definitely had doubts. Like, he believes in the power of God, but he doesn't believe the priests. He believes that the priests themselves are somehow conspiratory and may not be true or not really have the spirit. Okay. The prince and his uncle, Finau Fisi, next held a consultation together respecting their mode of conduct, particularly in regard to certain chiefs. Who were suspected of not being well disposed towards their family. So we're talking about Moingangongo and Finau Fisi. They consulted together, respecting the mode of conduct, particularly in regard to certain chiefs who were suspected. Shoot. Hold the hell on. Oh, this freaking idiot. What?
The food pantry.
What about it?
Right now.
Oh, so what?
So I'm gonna leave my car real quick. And then after I drop it off, then I'll switch it back. But I'm gonna leave the key in here just in case.
All right. Bring it back. Wait, what about our stuff at Mom's?
I'm gonna grab all of our stuff.
All right. Hush. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. That was... All right. The prince and his uncle, Finau Fisi, had next held a consultation together respecting their mode of conduct, particularly in regard to certain chiefs who were suspect of not being well disposed towards their families. So a lot of guys, you can sense the vibe. Who do we not trust? Let's talk about that. Moingangongo and his uncle, Finau Fisi, is talking about that. Finau Fisi, for his own part, said that he had no other wish than to coincide in whatever should seem likely to establish the peace and welfare of Ha'afuluhau, the name given to Vava'u and all its neighboring small islands taken collectively, and that the only method of doing this would be to send all of those chiefs who pretended to have a right to the sovereignty or who were suspected of such pretensions away to the Hapai Islands. So, Finau Fisi, back then, when they speak in formal occasions, they call Vava'u Ha'afuluhau. So, in formal occasions, in religious occasions, or whatever, the ones of old, the people of old who know Ha'afuluhau, who knew it as Ha'afuluhau before it was called Vava'u, Ha'afuluhau was the place of the house. It was the land of the house, right? Fere toa, right? Many toas, many champions, right? But now that he's speaking formally of Vava'u, they say, when we speak formally of Vava'u, we call it Ha'afuluhau, which means filled with champions, or the land of champions. People who were good at war, or good at the claim of conquest and so forth, right? Now we just call it Vava'u. Nobody even knows it used to be called Ha'afuluhau. I've never heard anybody call it Ha'afuluhau until I've read Mariner's book. But I guess to give it, everybody calls it lolo. When they speak of it in a respectful term or a rejoicing, or one of those terms where you give credit to, they call it lolo, and they call it the lolo, right? Because there's new lolo, there's new lalo, but they call Vava'u the lolo, or the oil, for whatever reason. I know they have the lolo hair was made in Vava'u. The ink that they put on the ngatu, they call it the lolo hair, right? Whatever the hair plant was, it was the ink they used. But there are so many changes and so many ways they can speak respectfully of places, and it seems like the older you acknowledge somebody or some place, the more respect you have for that place, because you speak of it in reference to my ancestors had a relationship with that place. So they're saying we should get anybody who has conspiracy against Ha'afuluhau and let us rule here in Ha'afuluhau. We know it's Vava'u, right? But that's interesting that he went and mentioned the name. Just like anybody. Like if you know anybody's given Matapure name, that's what you would call them that. If you go to a Faikava, you hear people call people like you know them from outside, either in church or out of the Faikava area. But when you go to Faikavas, people call each other by different names, and you'll know what their Matapure names are when you go to the Faikava, because they'll call each other that name, right? If you've been to anywhere in Faikava, right? You're gonna hear different names. Like, why did he call him that? Because that's what his dad called, because they're usually given names from Matapures, from nobles. Nobles give these names. And in the Kava circle, they use those names. They always have in the Kava circles. They don't use the names outside of the Kava circle. It's a religious ordinance for us to use the names that the nobles give us, whether it's the Tuitonga or the Tui or the Eiki or whatever, Matapure. We use those names when it comes to these religious ceremonies, purposes. And so when you go to the Faikava, sometimes you'll hear somebody call somebody name, and you know them as Shionne, but they call them something else, right? That's what it is in acknowledging Vava'u instead of saying Vava'u. They'll protect a Ha'afuluhau. Yeah, see, nobody. I would rather call it, you from Ha'afuluhau? Just to see if the Vava'u guys know what it is or what it was. You know what I'm saying? They're like, because you ask them, "Help me, Lolo," right? Or if they're from Hapai, "Help me for Yone." Those type of names. But if you say, "Help me, Ha'afuluhau," that means I know what your ancestors used to call it. My family's from Hapai. That's where, I take claim to. But you have Ha'apai and you have Ha'afuluhau. You have Ha'amoa and Ha'avaihi, who gave these ha'a names, unless it leads back all the way to the capital of the Empire of Polynesia, which is Tonga, in many evidences, right? Let's see, where were we? Oh, and they said that we're going to take anybody who had conspiracies and send them all to Ha'apai or Tupoto'ais. We need to watch out for Tupoto'a too, because that guy might have something on his mind too. As to his nephew, he said that there could not well rise any dispute to his right of succession, except on the part of his ill-disposed chiefs. Inasmuch as he was the late king's heir and was well beloved by the Vava'u people, on account of his having been the adopted son of the late Tupo Niwa, and also because he was born at Vava'u and brought up there. Perfect. Now they have their king. Because Finau Ulukalala had to take Vava'u by force, but Finau Ulukalala's brother, is telling Finau Ulukalala's son, Moingangongo, you're perfect for this place. You were born here. You were adopted by Tupo Niwa, and they love Tupo Niwa. They raised you. Vava'u raised you, Moingangongo. You were then sent to be the tributary chief in Ha'amoa, but this is yours. Like, you're the heir to this place, not only through adoption, but through blood, because your dad was Finau Ulukalala. Finau Fisi is telling him this, and I agree. Ha'afuluhau does belong to Moingangongo. The prince agreed with his uncle on the propriety of sending the pretenders to the Ha'apai Islands, particularly Vuna. Yeah, send Vuna's punk ass. He's got to go for sure. Who was of the line of those chiefs who governed Vava'u before the revolt of Tonga. Vuna does have a say. Because Vuna, he is a descendant of those chiefs who governed at Vava'u, or governed Vava'u before the revolt of Tonga. Well, after the revolt of Tonga, they're going to reset. So he may have been a descendant of the rulers of the old ways, or the old kings, but the new kings have stepped in and they put Tupo Niwa in, right? But Vuna still feels like he may have a chance. Also, Vuki, who was at the head of a strong party of men and was known to be in the interest of Tupo To'a. So Vuki and Tupo To'a, and Vuki I would see, because he's a chief in Vava'u. He may or may not been, he doesn't say where exactly he's from, but he said he was with Tupo To'a, so he may be a Ha'apai guy. Anyways, he may get Tupo To'a's help, and Tupo To'a, we've already known the story of Tupo To'a. Vuki may get Tupo To'a to help him take Vava'u. Finau Fisi and Moingangongo are having this conversation. The prince concluded by saying, but let us wait as quietly as possible till the burial of my father, and then we shall have a different scene in the affairs of Vava'u. When all promoters of civil discord are banished, the land shall be cultivated and shall appear again flourishing, for we have had war enough. To which everybody present replied, 'tis all we wish for. 'Tis all we wish for. Moingangongo sits at the throne at this point in time as the king of Vava'u, or the high chief, because he is Ulukalala's son, in a circle with his closest guys and his uncle. This is what they meet about. We'll send everybody who has conspiracy, including Vunya and Vuki and whoever else, over to Ha'apai. They can stay with Tupo To'a and stay there. We will build Vava'u back up. We will make it flourish. We will build food, and everybody will flourish, and everybody will prosper in this land. That's what Ha'afuluhau deserves. And everybody replied, that's all we want. Well, let's do it. Say less. Let's go. From the above sentiments of the two chiefs, it will appear to be their intention to confine the new sovereignty to the island of Vava'u and its neighboring isles without receiving tribute unless voluntarily paid, which was not at all likely to be the case. from the Hapai Islands, now in possession of Tupoto'a, against whom the prince had no intention of waging a new war and shedding more blood for the mere purpose of obliging him to continue that tribute as heretofore. You see how it's worded? You see why I gotta go in and freaking interpret, and I gotta send my freaking AI mind into this to interpret this thing. Let's see. So Moangangongo doesn't want to receive any tributes from the other small islands of Vava'u, because in Vava'u there's the main island and there's a whole bunch of small islands around it. What he's saying is, we'll let everybody grow their food and receive their pay, however they may, and not take from them tribute, right? Not take from them any tribute. And then guys, without receiving tribute, unless they voluntarily do so. Without receiving tribute from the Hapai Islands, now in possession of Tupoto'a, against whom the prince had no intention of waging new war and shedding more blood for the mere purpose of obliging him to continue that tribute as heretofore. Okay. Now I get it. So he doesn't want any tribute from any islands of Vava'u. He only wants tribute from Ha'apai, from Tupoto'a. My father helped you get Ha'apai, because my father was over Ha'apai, Tupoto'a, and now you are. My father wanted Vava'u. But from you I will receive a tribute. You will give tribute. Because it says right here, he will confine the new sovereignty into the island of Vava'u and its neighboring isles without receiving tribute from the Ha'apai Islands. Gotta friggin' retranslate this. He is not going to receive tribute from the Ha'apai Islands and its neighboring. So, see how difficult it is to kind of. That's why it takes forever to freaking record and then edit these freaking videos, is because I have to run through it a few times to make sure I understand. From the above sentiments of the two chiefs, it will appear to be the intention to confine the new sovereignty of the island of Vava'u and its neighboring isles without receiving tribute from the Hapai Islands, now in possession of Tupoto'a. No tribute necesito, against whom the prince had no intention of waging new war and shedding more blood for the mere purpose of obliging him to continue that tribute as heretofore. I'm not going to go to war with Tupoto'a just so that he gives tribute. That's what he's saying. Hi! Unless voluntarily paid, which was not at all likely to be the case. All right, sorry guys. I had to go through that. Golly, it went haywire. The conference being ended, the two chiefs turned their attention to the removal of the body of the late Hau to Feretoa to be buried, as there were no faitokas at Neyafu, but such as belong to the family of Tu'itonga. So there's a faitoka, there's a burial place, cemetery in Feretoa, but it's only for the Tu'itonga family. You can't bury a king there. He has to be taken to Feretoa to be buried there. And it would have been contrary to custom to have buried an individual of the Hau's family in a grave belonging to that of Tu'itonga. There you go. No Hau or Aiki of any kind. Well, Tu'itonga is an Aiki, what we talked about before. That's why funeral things are Tu'itonga's responsibility. That's the way they call funerals me'afaka Aiki, because funerals are Aiki's responsibilities. All the funerals in Tonga back then were the Tu'itonga's responsibilities. And the Tu'itonga is an Aiki. So they called funerals things of the Aiki responsibilities, Tu'itonga's responsibilities. Anyways, we call it that now, Me'afa'iki. So, that was chapter 12, ladies and gentlemen. That was chapter 12. We've got one more chapter in this volume, this first volume. And as I've told you before, this right here, this is the book that my dad acquired at, and it's all, a couple of the pages are missing because it got tore up. But this is what it looks like. This is what I'm reading out of. Old freaking pages, old, right? Almost look as crusty as my hands. Anyways, that's where we're at. We're on chapter 13. Damn. So I've live read chapter what? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and now 12. I've live read 6 chapters in the past month and a half. I've read and edited the first 6 chapters in a year and a half. That's how freaking time consuming editing is for me anyway. But I'm gonna freaking get up on this, dude, because we need to move it into the to image. So I do plan to make all this still image. I do plan on moving it from still image into moving AI image, from AI image perhaps one day into documentary image, and from documentary image into silver screen box office. That's the goal, or that's the phase, and it's a lot of freaking work. Hoy, it's a lot of work. But we've come to the end of Finau Ulukalala. We've come to a beginning of a whole new realm of how the beginnings of beginnings begin, right? Because when Captain Cook came to Tonga, he came to Ha'apai. That's how Finau Ulukalala knew Captain Cook, right? When Finau was the chief captain in his 20s, right? And Mariner describes Finau as being in his 50s. He says mid to late 50s, perhaps even 60s. He doesn't really know. The picture that we show is of Finau Ulukalala when one of the captains or one of the people on board in ships drew him. The picture that I share is a picture of one of Mariner's friends who drew him. And John Martin said, yeah, this depiction is it's pretty good of Mariner that one of his friends drew of him. So we finally come to the end of Finau Ulukalala and the beginning of Moingangongo. Some of William Mariner's friends are gone already, right? They jumped on the ship 2 chapters ago. The treachery, the religions, the stories, the women, the wives, attendants, and what attendants mean as far as whether they're wives or concubines or handmaids, specifically and generally. We still are, I think it'll come in on the next volume when Mariner speaks specifics about specific things, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Anyways, R.I.P. Finau Ulukalala. Now that you're gone, and all the sentiments that were shared about you, good and bad, from Mariner and from people who feared him, and from the Vava'u guys who didn't fear him, and from the chiefs of Vava'u, or the sons of the chiefs of Vava'u. It's the next generation's turn. King Finau Ulukalala is gone. The next generation, it's your turn, right? So that's chapter 12. I'll be back with chapter 13 probably tomorrow, bro. Because I really want, even though I've read this a couple times already, now I really want to know. Because to read it out loud in detail and speak it while I'm thinking it, it does a whole lot to put things together that way, right? And it does a whole lot for the live. It does a whole lot for what I'm going to edit. And I think it's more beneficial for me to do it that way than for me to read it and then kind of do it on video. Live it, and then all this will be edited. Each chapter will be edited into the edited sound, visual, image motion version, right? Because after I do all that, then I got to get into the AI still and then AI motion version, and on into the next phases and the next phases and the next phases. So I appreciate you all for all your help and support. To share, more than anything, just share the channel and the content, and let's get everybody on board. So when it's time for, moving into the next phases of telling the history, I'll appreciate all the support and the help. Let's see, what are we saying in here? Um, Storyboarding. Shoot, man. I would love to build a freaking team already because I've already gotten into the AI stuff, right? I'm already into the AI stuff, the still images, the moving images. I'm already thinking about, having voiceovers or cartoon versions of voiceovers and stuff. Like, there's so many phases at this point, but just like I said, it's a lot of freaking work, right? Assassin's Creed Polynesia would be sick, right? The Hawaiians are still there. Yep, Hawaiians are still there. Samoa guys are still there. Fijians are still there. So I appreciate everybody's help and how much I eat today. Nothing, man. But freaking, I was thinking about going on a motherfucking 30-day fast because I've been seeing the 30-day fast guys freaking lose everything. You know what I mean? I need to lose a lot more. But anyways, any other questions or whatever? I appreciate everybody stopping by. All these names, man. I mean, I ran into a whole bunch of people in Salt Lake that knew some of the names that I was talking about, right? I'm a student at Weber State. I come with their Studio 76. Let me know what it is, Tongan Style 1. What it is. You're a student, I would freaking love to know what they're learning in school, dude. Yeah, message me. You can go to what do I have? Exodus 1177, XCDSS 1177. I go by Professor Exodus XCDSS. Editing? Oh snap! You edit, boy? What's happening though? I know how much time it takes and how much trouble it is. So if you do have time and you can, bro, I really freaking need the thing. Assassin's Creed Polynesian Tongan style coming up. Yeah. There's so many ideas. I've sat and talked with my brothers because they read the book themselves and they've watched some of the things. And there's a lot of things that they watched that they've missed from reading. There's so many ideas that come up, right? There was actually Harvey from Portland, Oregon, but they're Oakland guys. Havea. Damn, I forgot the last name. They're 4 powers. Anyway, he had ideas of doing the same thing, right? This idea just came from me wanting to put it online so that my kids have something to see in case something happens to me and something to hear about history and how important it was for me to sit down and record my history, for me reading it and thinking and talking about it. But ever since then, it's like, oh, shoot, I might as well do this and then go into the next so that the storytelling moves forward and progresses into something that we can make something to watch out of, right? And I feel so freaking, there's something so strong deep down in my freaking soul about this book. Like I would read it like somebody converted to the scriptures, converted to God. This is how I read it. I read it as if I was converted to it. Like it's not something curiosity is there, but it's curiosity times 10. It's something times 10 that makes me really want to do this and make sure it gets out no matter what. And sometimes I feel like, you know what, if I did this and shared the whole thing, even in this live story mode and past, I would be happy because my kids would see how passionate I am about my history, about my people, about my culture, especially since we're in the culture of religion and which part of the characteristics and behavior of our culture ties with whatever religion that we are a part of, and how that ties us into different, to each other, from different islands to different religions, but the people tied together, right? Through blood and relations. That's why it's so exciting to talk to niggas and be like, Oh yeah, you know that guy? Oh yeah. Oh that's my homie. Like we're all connected, especially in the Kava world. Like we are so close knit, tightly connected in the Kava world. Everything in the Kava world, even the good, the bad, the ugly in the Kava world is tied together. But we feel very privileged and happy to be tied together that way. George Vason, yeah, he stayed in Mu'a, right? Yeah, I gotta definitely do George Vason for show. HGTV lifestyle. Communications department with the digital district at Studio 76 at Weaver State. Let me know what it is, man. Let me know what it is that you can do. I know you're a student and you probably won't have much time for it, but I would just like to know what it is. You know, because I do a lot of just online studying on the different YouTube University, going to through whoever knows. And that's the thing about the knowledge that's online, especially on YouTube, because I have to see it, right? Things move and see it, and have get to look for my own professor. I get whoever teaches me, not that they are better at them than the other, but that I understand one more than the other because I learn a certain way, right? And that's why I tell my kids, when they have math problems or history problems or whatever, I'm like, go to YouTube University, look at those subjects, and pay attention to just a few seconds or a couple minutes of those subjects, and then move on to another, to another, until you find your professor, right? I think it's unfair that we send one teacher who graduated from somewhere to teach 30 different kids of you have no idea how these kids learn and you expect all of them to know what you're talking about and how to learn and we do it one way. I don't agree with that. I tell my kids to jump on YouTube University and find your professor. There's somebody out there that teaches you the way only he or she can teach you for you to understand. There's probably some stuff that I can't even teach you for you to understand because you're talking about math and I don't do good in math. So you better get the step in right now. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, thanks for joining today. Let me know, Tonga Style 1, America's team. Oh, I noticed there's Cowboy fans in here too. There's also Raider fans. And in my Raider one, there were freaking Cowboys fans hating on them. All good. Hey, Ofat Gavtama. Thanks for watching. Appreciate us keeping up with this story. Chapter 13 is next, and I'll come and do that tomorrow. Ofatu, Motorangelotu, R.I.P. Finau Ulukalala, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, Gate.